What up, headbangers? How you doing? I'm Rob O'Day, and welcome to the very first Industry Talks. Today we're chilling with TJ the Epic Texan. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good now that I got that settled with my mouth, figuring out words. So
We'll
you
have to
are
put that on
a
the blooper reel.
right? Yeah, no worries. So you're a radio host and a PR rep, right?
Well, I'm not actually a PR rep. What I do is like I find bands and kind of send them to the PR reps themselves. Like kind of like I'm the middleman in
You're the
there.
scout.
Yeah,
You're the
pretty
you're the
much.
talent finder.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I am a radio host. As you can see in the background, this is the logo for the show. It's called the Epic Show. I've been doing radio for a little over 10 years now. Started January 2011. Been through a lot of stations. Right now, the show used to be live. It's currently pre-recorded and syndicated on 7 different stations, heard 9 times a week.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
So you've been doing
and
it for a while.
mostly here in the U.S. There's one in the U.K. and there's one in France that airs it.
Okay. So you've been doing this for a long time.
Yes, sir.
Met lots of bands, dealt with it.
Yeah, yes, yes. And in the past, I'm originally from Houston, Texas,
Okay.
and born and raised, lived in various, parts in and around Houston, and even had a few years of actually helping booking bands at venues and stuff like that, putting on concerts, signing contracts for like, touring bands to come in, having shows aired and stuff.
Yeah.
So
Over the course of your time, how have you seen the industry change?
it's changed dramatically. When I started, first, like when I started, things like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram were brand new to, most people, like in the mainstream.
Yeah.
Um, and at the time, it was just that's all it was. It was social media. Music really wasn't involved in that like it is now. Um, Things like Spotify, um, Amazon Music, Deezer, all that kind of stuff wasn't around. And if it was, it wasn't really all that in the forefront like it is now.
Yeah.
We were still buying CDs, watching, live concerts on either just going to it or if you got the DVD or the Blu-ray. We didn't have things like on YouTube. We didn't have live streams on YouTube like we have now, or even on other websites or whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
it went from more of a personal experience to everything's digitized now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, um, Even though I've been on internet radio the whole time, really that's other than iTunes back then, that was really the only digitized thing about music was internet radio stations,
Mm-hmm.
maybe watching, YouTube music videos, but that was about it.
Yeah.
But
100.
now everything's about digital,
Mm-hmm.
more, I used to work in retail back in the day. The physical CDs I used to sell at retail stores don't exist in those retail stores anymore. You know, they will sell you cars to go buy it online, for iTunes or, Amazon or whatever. Or even if you want to get a Spotify gift card, which you don't even have to go to a retail store, you can go to like, a corner store now and get those. So everything's digitized and everything's less as far as getting paid for your music now than it was back then.
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, even though CD sales weren't a lot, they were still more than like Spotify, for example. That's always been a big topic of how Spotify pays their artists. They barely
Yeah.
pay them at all,
Yeah. No, I actually have been doing a lot of research on the numbers, and it's actually pretty
Yeah.
sad, and it's weird to see who is the leader in paying artists out is Napster.
Yeah. Yeah.
So funny enough, it's
I know, right? Because, first time I heard about Napster was like, hey, we're going to give this all for free, until Lars
yes,
stepped in.
and even that they yeah, even that we all hated Lars as musicians. We're all like a shut up, you know what I mean? But
Yeah,
we weren't musicians then. That's the thing. We were fans, but we didn't realize he was trying to stand up for people who were emerging and trying to work at
exactly.
it. So
Exactly. Yeah. When that happened, I wasn't on the side of the industry that I am now. Like you said, I was a fan of music. I'm like, dude, hello, I'm getting this for free. Can you shut up? And now looking back, I'm like, I understand where he came from.
mhm.
Completely understand because you got to make your money. You're spending more money than you're making most of the time.
Yeah. I
You know,
definitely think it's
You-
that's what's led to the independence too.
exactly. A lot of DIY lately. I have a lot of friends that are DIY musicians. They will have their own studios. They will record it themselves. They're like, We don't care about record contracts. We don't care, about, trying to get it big with, whether it be Sony or, whatever label is out there. We
Hmm.
just want to get our music heard and do what we can and do it our way. Um, and for them, it works.
Yeah.
I know bands that you may have never even heard of that are busting their asses right now. And they will use any platform, even TikTok recently. I've seen musicians even recently using TikTok as a platform to get their music heard.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, for
Um,
sure.
there's a band out there called State of Mind. They're a hard rock band. Um, and their lead singer, he will sit there. He's one of the biggest TikTok content creators out there right now, and he's out there pushing their music,
Hmm.
and he does it in an entertaining way, so it works. You have to find what you is relevant these days and use it as a tool to get your name out there. Okay,
Hmm.
and for some people it's working. For others, I know they struggle because yeah, you have the talent as a musician, but like, they're not actors, so they can't go on TikTok and do things like he's doing. Which
Yeah.
I'm not saying that to bash them. It's just, the truth of the matter.
No, it's true. There's a lot of people
Yeah,
who there are a lot of musicians who are multifaceted in the aspect of what they can do, and there are some that are strictly just musicians, so
exactly.
and you do have to adapt to the climate of today's industry, which has become a whole new monster, like a whole new
Yeah.
creature in its own.
It's like I tell people, we are currently in the age of technology more so than ever. You
Hmm.
know, I am, and you can call me a Gen X, Zillennial, whatever you want to call it. I was born in the late 70s.
Hmm.
I grew up when 8 tracks and, vinyls and cassette tapes were the thing, and I watched it change all the way from there to CDs, Walkmans, and stuff like that to now it's MP3s and waves, and now everything's on Spotify and YouTube and
Yeah.
all that stuff. I have gone through, generations of music. I grew up with music. Um, my dad, when I was, really young, actually owned a record store for a short while,
Oh wow.
and that actually helped me with the cultural division of music and learning about it,
Hmm.
and as well as, even in school, I was a band for a little bit. I was in choir, you know, I learned a lot growing up with different aspects. And even now, even with the, internet radio, you learn so much because there's so much different styles of music out there, especially in rock and metal. You
Hmm.
know, there's not just rock, there's not just metal. There are so many genres these days of
Yeah.
rock and metal. And I, back in 2016, I stepped away from internet radio for a while. I did a podcast for a little while, but life happens sometimes, and you got to step back and you got to take care of yourself first. I did that, and I came back almost a year ago, and learning that during that time, I'm like, okay, I used to stick with just certain genres. I'm like, I can't do that anymore because that's not fair.
Hmm.
Because there's more than just this and that I used to play. There's, you got punk rock, you got hard rock, you got, hair rock, you got thrash metal, doom metal, sludge metal, all this other stuff, and it's like, okay, I'm going to give these guys a chance, because everybody deserves a chance.
Yeah.
And it's hard, even with me trying to push it, it is hard for them to get their names out. I'm doing what I can, and I'm trying to encourage others to do that as well. Because yeah, it might be what you like, but guess what? You're sitting there missing out on opportunities of something that you've never heard of that you might like,
Hmm.
you know, and why not take that opportunity?
Yeah.
You know,
That's
that's
true.
one thing I always say. If you listen to my show, or if you listen to somebody else's show that does something similar to what I do, you might find your next favorite thing.
Yeah. Right. No, and it's true because I mean, a lot of the bands that I've interviewed have become actually some of my favorite bands. Their music is
Absolutely.
genuinely amazing. Them as people, you're like, I look up at you. You're great people. So
Absolutely.
I think the
Yeah.
emerging bands have something special that's hidden inside this underground metal culture, and it's weird that it doesn't get picked up as much. You definitely don't see major labels going out and looking for artists anymore.
Yeah. And honestly, it irks me because I feel like we're the forgotten ones, we're the
Hmm.
ones that are left behind, and we have to pretty much scrounge for ourselves. You know, you look at all the corporate stuff that's going on, recently the Grammys, perfect example. Um, I'm trying to. I apologize. I have a brain fart.
Oh, no worries.
I can't remember who it was that won the rock artist of the year, but it was actually a rock metal band, which was very rare because most of the time you see it's not somebody in those genres winning
Yeah.
those awards. You know, even if they're nominated. I mean, Beyonce, she's not a rock artist.
No.
I call that pop music. You
Yeah.
know,
If
pop
that.
R&B.
Yeah.
And I'm not hating on her. I have nothing against her personally at
Yeah.
all. I'm not hating on her, but and I don't blame her. I blame the corporates. I blame the corporates because they want to keep everything televised and fresh and how they want it to be to where they can make it marketable and advertisable and because they only care about money. That's
Yeah.
all they care about.
Yeah. And
All right.
it's weird how musicians get paid so little, even though music is in so many aspects of life, from commercials to
Exactly.
radio to anything.
Yeah. I mean, you watch a movie or a TV show, there's music in it.
Yeah.
Watch sports, they play music, in between whatever's going on. All right. You look at commercials, they use music. Everything is involved around music. Yet these corporate companies have found a way to, hey, we're going to control what is shown in the mainstream. We're
Yeah.
going to control what is pushed in the mainstream, you know. And I'm going to go back to Taylor Swift. I honestly, I applaud her for how she fought for what was going on with her music in Spotify,
Yeah.
and how she had to get, the rights back to her own music from someone else,
Yeah.
you
It
know.
is true. You've got it's devil's in the details when it comes to contracts. And I think
Exactly.
that's where major labels are going to lose a big grip on the industry, and they're going to shut down
Mhm.
because these independent labels, they know what the industry is like. They know that artists record themselves, so
Absolutely. And there are some labels out there that actually I applaud them because they stick, with the genres that we talk about,
mhm,
Rise Records,
yeah,
they're huge, with the rock and metal industry, Seven Dust, perfect example right there. They're with Rise.
yeah,
What is it? Nuclear Blast, Napalm Records, stuff like that. They focus on what we needed,
yeah,
and they have bands. Napalm Records recently signed Tetrarch,
yeah,
you know. Yeah, they're about to release their first major label album, here this month. And I was blown away by these guys. I wish I had known them sooner. These guys are awesome,
right,
and I'm like, holy crap, they already got signed. That's amazing. My friends in Saul got signed. Um, to Spine Farm Records, last
nice,
year. And, what they've done with them is just amazing. And I'm like, okay, we need more of what's going on there. Because they're actually like, hey, we want to do for you what you want.
mhm,
They're not just like, sign here, we're going to make you famous.
yep,
We're going to put you everywhere. No, they are more for, we want what you want, and we're going to do what we can to help
yeah,
you,
and I
and there
think
needs
that's
to be
what's
more of
nice.
that.
Yeah, and I think that's what's nice about, independent labels.
Yeah,
There's a lot of them underground labels that are either now emerging or have been established for a few years, that have
absolutely.
been extremely dedicated to the underground metal scene. And I mean, it's not hard to find good bands, but
Hmm.
it's hard to market them in this day and age
Yeah.
where people's attention span is like 30 seconds.
Right, absolutely.
So,
Um, I'll give you one good one that comes off the top of my head. Curtain Call Records. All right. They have a working relationship with the Rage Radio Network. One of the stations I'm on is part of that.
mhm,
But even before I got onto that net, on that station with that network, Curtain Call Records, have come to me. They're like, hey, we've got these bands. We want you to check them out, play them on your show. Every single one they've sent me, I played on my show because they're awesome. They're amazing. And it's like people just don't get a chance to hear them,
mhm,
you know? And one thing I've loved about being back is that the way I've gone about it, I must have done something right because all these independent companies, these record labels, these PR management labels, companies have come to me. And I'm like, first of all, how'd you find out about me?
mhm,
I'm like, I've never even heard of these, these labels and these PR companies and management. I'm like, I must have been doing something right because I'm getting email after email after email after message, so on and so on.
yeah,
I'm like, this is awesome. I love this. I love that every day I can wake up and there's something new waiting for me. It's like, I feel like a kid in Christmas because there's something new waiting for me,
yeah, that's how I
you
feel
know?
with Enigma.
Yeah,
100%.
absolutely. You know,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's definitely been the same for us.
When y'all contact me, I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome.
Well, yeah,
You
and the
know,
way we do things is it's totally we do it in a different aspect too, because most interviews fans when they walk into an interview, they think, "Oh, can ask the typical questions." And realistically, it's just getting to know the bands for who the bands are, and then I tend to drop the bomb of what would you change in the industry, and
hmm
that's when they stop and they actually think about it after this huge in-depth conversation, and they're like, "You know what? There's a lot that could be changed." So,
yeah, absolutely.
everything from the payment from Spotify to the support of actual fans.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, I've seen the number of fans going to shows decline over the past 10 years by tenfold, and it's scary.
It is. This whole pandemic, has really hurt the industry a lot.
Mhm.
Um, I've seen some venues that I've had, good histories with, that were legendary. I've been around for several years. Just they've had to shut their doors because they made no money because of what happened with COVID.
Yeah.
They couldn't pay the bills. You
Yeah.
know, and it hurt. It hurt a lot. Um, I'm going to mention one because there's one that actually fought. That were in a fight, not a physical fight or anything, like a
Mhm.
legal fight
Yeah.
to keep their doors open, to keep doing what they were doing. The Rail Club Live in Fort Worth, Texas. They were like, freedom fighters when it came to wanting to keep their doors open because, the Texas governor, other, TABC, which, they're the ones that does the liquor license in
Mhm.
Texas. Um, they fought back and forth for a long time. Chris, who is the owner and the main guy of Fort Worth, he wasn't giving up for nothing. And
Yeah.
I applaud him. He stood his ground and he had a backing with him. He had, legal people backing him up. He had so many people backing him up. Even Fort Worth police were like, dude, we're not gonna touch you, unless you do
Mhm.
something illegal that we see, we're not getting involved,
Yeah.
you know. Um, to the point where TABC pulled their license a few times for no legit reason other
Just
than they just wanted to dick around with them.
yeah.
They wanted to be bullies, and that's what they were. Um, and Chris was like, I'm gonna fight you back. I will take this to court. I will take, and he even went to Austin, Texas,
Mhm.
to the capital of Texas and said, I'm here. Let's do this. We're going to fight,
Yeah.
you know, and he led the way to where it's like, okay, venues are now opening back up, you know, even if it was at a small percentage and it grew and it grew and it grew. Now they're at 100% now.
Yeah.
Yeah. But at the same time, there are still places that are still hurting and suffering, you
Mhm.
know, even across, overseas, there's places that are still in lockdown.
Yep.
They
Yeah.
can't even step
Fra
outside their doors
France
and
is
it's
in
hurting.
curfew at 6 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think like in the UK is suffering big time right now.
Yeah, I know that well, our guitar player, Dale's
Mhm.
actually in Nottingham, and I think
Oh
he said
wow.
that they lifted restrictions recently,
Well,
which
I'm
is
happy if
yeah.
that's the case. I am so happy. I saw a video in France where the in Paris, France, the police there they refused to do any more lockdown. They stood in
Mhm.
solitary and dropped their handcuffs
Yeah.
as a symbol. It's like we're done with this.
Yeah, it's been a year. It's at
Yeah.
least in Canada, we just passed our official year, and they're still are trying to tell us now to have another like 3-week lockdown, and I'm like, man, just
Oh
like
wow.
open
Uh,
things up. You've
Oh
already
man.
killed BC. I emailed the BC premier
Mhm.
about suggesting a two-stage venue for all ages venue for
Yeah,
shows because like we need to do something. Like there's
absolutely.
no there's no funding or support from governments anymore for music, I find. I mean,
It
you get
really isn't.
some, but it's only for like pop artists or country artists. Like it's
Yeah, and that's
hard.
because of the fact that they've got those record labels backing them up.
Yeah, or it's because it's what sells and it's worth giving the grants to and things like that. And
Exactly. And honestly, I have nothing against pop, musicians. I have nothing against country artists.
yeah,
It's just what I have against is the corporate,
yeah,
side of it. And it's like where it's like, okay, we are gonna be on the forefront and everybody else is gonna be behind us and we're gonna hide you in the shadows. That's
mhm,
not fair.
yeah. And
That is not fair.
the fact that emerging bands like metal and rock bands have to
Yeah.
book their own tours and pay it out of their own pocket.
Exactly.
And I don't think people realize how much it costs.
Yeah. That's why, some venues, that are still around, thankfully that they are, they know about what's going on, and they are fair and honest when it comes to, okay, hey, can we play a show there? Sure. Here's what we offer. And I'm going to be 100% honest about it, because I want you to decide whether you want to play here or not.
Mm-hmm.
Let them make the decision, and that's how, even a venue should be. Don't just be like, oh yeah, you can come here and play, but we'll pay you $20.
Yeah, or you get door.
Yeah. Or you get
Yeah,
door.
that's it.
Yeah. No, I mean, unless it's a band that has a crap load of money and they're self-funded and they could pay for themselves,
Mm-hmm.
that's not fair.
No.
It's, and they're doing that to get the music out. And because of the fact that they want, not just, their recordings, they want their live experiences being shown, as much as possible as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can listen to an MP3 all day long, but there's a difference between listening to an MP3 and having a live experience,
Yeah.
going to a concert. All right. I've been to small venue concerts. I've been to large venue concerts, amphitheaters, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Each one for me was a personal experience.
Yep.
I like some of my favorite bands, I've seen in big places. Some of my favorite bands you've never even heard of, I've seen in small venues. You know, each one of those to me was personal, because I'm like, oh my God, you could see the energy coming off of these musicians.
The
And it's just like,
passion.
yeah, exactly. It's a
Mm-hmm.
connection. You get that connection. You're just like, holy crap, that was awesome.
Yeah.
You know?
No, it's definitely a unique thing. And I think that's what, to bring back to what you were saying earlier about you keep getting messages and emails, is
Hmm.
you're doing things for other people. You're not doing it for
Exactly.
yourself. And I think that's what's the difference, about that people notice that, like same with us. We're not doing it for us to get famous. We
Right.
literally made it just to have other bands have a place to be heard, talk about what they
Right.
need to hear. This is what we are, who we are. I mean, it's
Yeah.
nowadays you can't make money off YouTube and stuff like that. So it's not like do it
Yeah.
for
And,
yourself,
and,
do it
and
for the
even if you do,
people.
it's not that much. It's not enough to live on,
Yeah.
you
So
know?
I mean, the more you do stuff for people and a community, it kind of, the
Hmm.
universe just gives it back to you, I find. And I think
Yeah,
that's what people need to do more of.
I agree. One of the things, as far as realizing things and what we were just talking about, community needs to be more. We
Mm-hmm.
need to help each other out a lot more than we used to.
Yeah.
Because, from, I don't know when it exactly started, but there used to be more unity, and now there's more division than ever.
Yep. I say that
You
all the
know,
time.
this world is so divided in so many aspects, and that needs to stop.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there needs to be more of, hey, we need to find a way to come together in every single aspect around the world and help each other out, instead of just being like, I'm over here, I'm by myself, leave me alone. I'm not letting any of y'all in near me, or I'm protecting me and me. Okay, so what happens when everybody else flourishes and you're by yourself?
Yeah, exactly.
You're going to ask for a handout, and there might be some people that are like, I'm going to be the bigger man and help you out, but then there's some people like, you're getting what you deserve.
Yeah.
It's called karma.
Yeah. I definitely
Exactly.
think that community is lacking. And I think
Exactly.
what really caused it was social media, the Facebook,
Yeah.
and not necessarily Facebook. I mean, more Instagram, I guess, because it's the likes, that like aspect. Because even nowadays, it's your
Yeah.
band, the quality of your music is determined on how many likes you have on Facebook or Instagram.
Yeah.
And that's a weird thing.
For me, I say post MySpace.
Hmm.
Social media in general
Yeah.
has a big thing to do with it.
Yeah.
Because MySpace, man, I miss MySpace.
Me too.
MySpace never did us
Honestly,
wrong.
collectively, every band I've interviewed too, and it's like just over 50 bands that I've
Hmm.
interviewed, and every single one wants Tom to come back.
I
Where
seriously,
is Tom?
he never did us wrong, like
Yeah.
how Zuckerberg's done us, or the Twitter people, or whoever else. Even right now, there's TikTok is screwing people over.
Hmm.
Um, but Tom never did that to us. Why did we leave him? I don't remember.
I don't even know if
I
it was we left him
I
or if
honestly, I don't
the
think
site just stopped. I
I
think
never
that's what it
left him.
was. Yeah.
Um, he actually, because of the popularity of all the other social media, he
Yeah.
sold the company It ended up actually being owned by some famous people over the years. Russell Simmons owned it for a while.
Oh, wow.
Justin Timberlake owned it for a while.
Crazy.
Yeah.
It just never
It's
got
and
back
then
up.
right now there is still a MySpace, but it's not the MySpace that you and I know.
Yeah, I heard it's just like a bare bones
Yeah.
skeleton of a
There's no
website now.
app that you can download. It's a
Yeah.
website. I'm still having trouble trying to even upload a picture right now to it.
Yeah. I
I'm
definitely
just
think
like,
that we need something new, that it was based off. If
mm-hmm,
it was more like Spotify mixed with MySpace, you know what I mean, and Facebook,
mm-hmm.
where you could have your profile still, it can be more interactive than
Yeah,
the MySpace one. Like the Facebook one is, it's very personal and interactive, but the algorithms where it fucks you,
exactly.
because you have to learn a new algorithm every 3 months.
Right.
And as a band, you're trying to focus on music. You're not worrying about, oh, I've got to worry about a new algorithm and how to master that. And that takes a day of
Right.
just research.
Yeah. And it's like, Facebook is, becoming that corporate part as well,
Hmm.
you know, with the likes,
Yep.
on the pages. Now, some pages you can't even like them. You can only follow them.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
And well, I've learned a little bit about that. They're restricting how many you can follow as well.
Weird.
Yeah, right. So like, on like say on a personal page, you can have 5,000 friends at the most. On
Yeah.
those follows, you can follow 5,000 at the most. I'm
Weird.
sorry, there's more than 5,000 bands out there that I want to follow.
Yeah.
There's more than 5,000 pages out there that I want to follow, and you're
Yeah.
restricting me. So how is that helping anybody? I'm not knowing about anybody else, and anybody else is not showing, seeing my support
Well,
because
I don't
I'm
think a
not
lot of
able
people
to
know about that either.
follow them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've just learned this myself.
I've also heard that they take likes off. Like they will
Yeah.
unlike people
Hmm.
randomly. Um, Semper
Yeah, because
Service
I.
from Texas, actually. Nelson, the lead singer, had a post a couple weeks back, and it was about how he's noticed that there was likes not like being taken
Mm-hmm.
off. And one of his good friends was like, I was unliked. So he had to
Yeah.
re-like his best friend's thing. It's like, it makes no sense.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, I've had people unfriended from my personal page. I've
Hmm.
had likes that I've liked being taken away. And, people will message me, hey, why did you unlike my page? That was Facebook. That wasn't me.
Yeah, right. And I
I
don't
don't know what's
understand
going
it.
on. Zuckerberg's fucking things up.
It's like
I'm
you
sorry. Can
don't.
I cuss?
Oh yeah, yeah, dude.
Okay. All
I'm foul mouth, 100%.
right. Okay. And that's one thing I love about being on internet radio is that the FCC has no touch on it.
Right?
You can say whatever you want to. Freedom of speech is not taken away.
Yeah.
You know,
I think that's also another thing that we kind of have too much of, and I think that's what's caused a lot of division is too much of that. Not freedom of speech, but my opinion's better than everyone else's.
yeah,
And that comes with the whole ego from popularity of,
right.
and I think that's what's weird because that's what definitely causes divisions in the bands
Hmm.
is that popularity. Because I know you don't see bands sharing other bands anymore.
I do.
I see some.
It's not as much,
Yeah.
as I would like, but I do see it, and I'm seeing more of it, and I'm glad. It makes me
Yeah.
happy when I see stuff like that. I'm going to give you a perfect example. This band Dying Oath out of North Carolina.
Hmm.
All right, they have a huge following, in their metal scene, but they also are humble about it.
Yeah.
When someone like me posts, hey, I'm playing you on my show or I'm adding you to my Spotify playlist, you know, they will sit there and they will, take whatever screenshot I have or whatever post I have, and they'll be like, hey, everybody, look at this, check this out,
Right.
And they're going to get back and they're like, they will going to turn around, hey, you're promoting us, we're going to do the same thing to you.
Yeah.
They will sit there and they will take pictures of, people they've worked with, bands that they've played with, stuff like that, and they will turn around and help promote them as well.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there needs to be more of that.
There definitely needs to. And I know that
Absolutely.
with like, I don't know if you're in like the world metal scene group.
Yes.
But yeah, like with 48,000 people in it. And it's insane how much support's in there.
Yeah.
I see more support, right? I see more I see more support from our metal groups than I do my own genuine friends that I've known for 20 years kind of a thing. Like it's insane. It's really insane to see the community we have, but it's just so hidden and split.
It really is. And there's like, there's people I've met through World Metal Scene and, other groups that I'm involved in as well. Even other DJs that are on stations I'm not on, we'll sit there and we'll just shoot the shit about things like this. I wish things were like this. There needs to be more of this. but I do see people that are fighting for it and doing what they can, which is one thing I love that we're doing here. We
Hmm.
need to bring the attention more to the forefront.
Yeah,
You know,
and I definitely agree that there's a lot of things that people don't
hmm
realize. They look at musicians and think, "Oh, you're on Spotify, you must be making good money."
yeah,
Or, and no, like a million plays is less than $5,000.
right, yeah,
That's
exactly.
that's
That's like,
insane.
you know, what is it? I can't remember um who was like the first million that was on Spotify, but like that was not a major label artist, but they're
Hmm.
like, yeah, we didn't really make a lot of money. All right, here's another thing. All right, even a major label artist, Chevelle,
Yeah,
they just recently released their latest album. They have sold over 6 million albums. They haven't made very much money off of it at all.
right.
Yeah. And they're like, yeah, that's why touring and merch sells and marketing exists, because that's how you make your money, you know.
No.
And even off of that, you still have to spend money to make money.
Oh, it
You have to
costs
spend money to get that
a
merch, and then
band.
you have to turn
Yeah.
around and sell it.
Hmm.
And then you have to, you know, pay these websites, you know, to be able to use that to sell your merch,
Yeah.
you know, and you have to pay these touring, companies, bus drivers, all this other stuff to be able to tour all over the place. You have to buy, food, hotels, all these other expenses. So in the music industry stuff, you have to spend money to make money.
No, funny enough, I actually have the numbers for that, what you were just talking about right here.
Yeah, yeah.
And for a month-long tour for a band at our level,
hmm
it costs 17,000 to $50,000 for a
That's
month-long
insane.
tour. And I don't think people realize that it costs
Yeah,
$50,000 for a band to just go and do that, and you're not making that back. Just you don't make
exactly.
that back. Like I can just say on my very first tour, I lost $3,000. I didn't
Ouch.
make a single dollar because it was
Yeah.
just travel expenses.
Yeah.
So
You have the gas, you have the food, you have the hotels, and sometimes, you have a vehicle that breaks down, you
that's
have
what
to
happened to
repair
us. Yep.
that.
Yeah, that's exactly what
I've
happened to
seen that
us.
so many times. I've actually, back when I used to book shows, there were bands like, hey, we can't make it. Our van just broke down. We have a flat tire, and there's no tire shop open.
Yep.
We're in the middle of the desert, whatever. And it sucks, because you spend all that time prepping and everything, and it's just like, okay, well, there's money they just lost.
Yeah, we were 16 hours away. We were in Calgary. So we drove all the
Oh,
way. We went to Edmonton, and on the way from Edmonton to Calgary, our brake lines
mhm.
stopped working, so we had no brakes.
Oh, oh, that's
So
scary.
yeah, so we canceled our two Calgary shows, but it was a fun experience. It was definitely one of
Yeah,
those life lessons where you're like, I learned things not to do for my next tour.
right,
I'm
right,
not gonna
absolutely.
buy gas station food every time because man, does that rack up.
Yeah, yeah, and on top of that, it's not healthy either.
No, I
You
was sick for
know,
like 3 weeks after,
yeah,
just like
absolutely. It's like,
ill.
yeah, I mean, you're living on, junk food pretty much.
Yeah.
It's not healthy. Um, I've done some, where I've gone with bands, on tours. Even stuff I've done in the past where it's like, okay, I've had to drive in cars and sleep in hotels, and I feel for all of you musicians that have to do that, you
Hmm.
know, because it's yeah, it's a great experience, but at the same time, it's a rough experience.
Yeah, at the moment they're rough. Like I look back at them now and like
Mhm.
we were driving to Saskatchewan once and we ran out of gas because GPS led us down a bunch of back roads.
Oh
We
gosh.
ran out of gas and we managed to make it to a gas station in the middle of nowhere that on the line said only opened up once a day or once a week.
hmm
So we're like, fuck, we're not gonna make it to our show. They managed to open, the owner was coming by to grab something out of the store for his house and he saw us and
Yeah.
he gave us gas. So we ended up making to the venue with like half an hour before load in.
Oh
But like
wow.
those are sleeping in the car packed full of equipment. Like those are the moments that I look back and I'm like, 20 years later, those are the moments I still love. I'm like,
Yeah.
I hate them in the moment, but there's
Like you
always
said,
going to
it's a
be
learning
something. Yeah,
experience.
right. There's always
Yeah.
going to be something that screws up, and you just kind of got to
Right.
learn how to get past it and through it.
Exactly. And that could be through anything that anybody goes through. I've done so many things in the past with the radio show where it's like, okay, that was a learning experience. Let me
Hmm.
never do that again.
Yeah,
You know, I will never do that again. I will never say this or, whatever it is,
play a
it's hard to
certain song
describe,
before. Yeah, no, it's little
but
things too when you're running something that are
mhm,
so the little things that can cause such a big stir.
Yeah.
Like you say a phrase wrong, people get offended, and
Hmm.
especially nowadays, it's really hard to try and appeal to everyone and make everyone happy.
And it's impossible.
Yeah,
It is impossible to make everyone happy because, you know, everybody's got their own ways that they're set in,
yeah,
and I'm a fan of pro wrestling. I have been since I was a kid.
hell yeah,
I'm going to use this as an example. Pro wrestling fans currently are the hardest to please. You can say, they will say, I want this. You give them this, and they turn around. No, that's not what I wanted.
yep,
They're going to change their mind, just like that. And that's how some people are in the world, regardless of what it is. You cannot please everybody.
yeah,
Right. But all you can do is what you can do, with what you have. Me, I'm working on the small little Dell laptop, this headset right here. I've got this, Audacity program that I use,
mm-hmm,
and I will sit there and I will record my voice breaks through Audacity, and then I will sit there and I will, use it and be like, okay, I'm done with that. I recorded that. You put this back in for the music, and then put the voice break after that, and then this and that and that and this. And I'm doing it by myself,
yeah.
you know. I have a little bit of help every now and then. My wife, she does the intro for the show.
No, that's
She's the
awesome.
voice of the intro. And I thank her for that. And she puts up with having for me to be like, hey, I got to do these voice breaks, so I need a little bit of silence until I'm done, and then after that, it's whatever,
Yeah.
and I do miss doing live, but at the same time, I love the fact that I'm on more stations, not being live. You
Exactly, and
know,
I think that's what I do with my podcast, the exact same thing. I'll take the audio from our interviews, and then I put
hmm
their songs in at a key point in the
yeah,
interview, and I find it's a lot easier, but when it's yourself and you're trying to run so many things,
right,
it does you start to fall behind almost, and it's
yeah,
definitely become an all-day job.
yeah, and even if I was on one station and I was doing it live, like I did in the past, there's still, you're still multitasking,
Yep.
because you're running that show, making sure these songs actually go through and everybody can hear it. And at the same time, people are wanting to talk to you, and it's like, okay, you know, that's major multitasking,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah, and then
because
you've
I
got
don't
the
have a
other.
producer,
Yep.
there's no producer, there's no social media person, answering the questions for me or doing the chat room for me or anything like that. It's me on this laptop by myself.
Yep. Yeah,
You
and
know,
I'm lucky to have Norman and Dale help me
yeah,
from like Norman, my bass player, and Dale, my lead guitar player.
right,
Norman is behind the scenes hands-on partner. He always comes on shows every now and again when he can make it down, but
hmm
and Dale's always constantly sending me new bands and sending me things, legal matters that I need to worry about, or
yeah,
here's some information that you should know. So it's nice to have that, but yeah, it's
yeah,
definitely hard when you're creating something yourself to
right,
try and benefit, well, not benefit, but build the community back up because it definitely needs it.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I started back in 2011, the reason I got into this was because of this guy named Diamond Sam LaVallery. He just recently came back on to being internet radio as well.
Oh, nice.
Um, I was listening to him. He was kind of, you know, almost Howard Stern style radio. He's very, he will tell you what he thinks with
Yeah.
no regard.
Yeah. I'm the same
He's
way.
very outspoken. He's very honest and blunt,
Yeah.
but he is also cares about people.
Yeah.
You know, if it's someone that he considers like family, he will stick up for them. He will back them up. Um, you know, and listening to his show, I started back in 2009 listening to his show. I found him, when I first started on Twitter, back when Twitter was a lot more popular than it is now.
Yeah.
Um, and we found each other through some kind of mutual thing. I can't remember exactly what it was. Then, I heard about he's got this online radio show. I'm like, well, online radio, what is that? I've heard of, is it like Sirius XM or something like that? And they're like,
Mm-hmm.
no, that's satellite. This is completely online. You just go to a website and you listen to it. I'm like, I'm gonna check that out.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing him, play the classics like, Kiss, and Metallica and Anthrax and all that stuff, classic rock and metal. I'm like, all right, this is cool. This guy's got a good personality. And I'm like, the more I listen to it, I'm like, you know, I like music too. Maybe I can give this a shot.
Right.
and the station he was on at the time, station, he talked to the station owner. She hooked me up with what I needed, and she was like, hey, you can be here on Mondays, 5 p.m. Central. I was like, dude, I'm there, so. And the Epic Texan name, I actually got that before I even got on radio. It was kind of a jab at somebody because I used the word epic a lot back in the days when message boards were still around. I was like, man, this is pretty epic. And they're like, why do you use that word so much? I hate that word. So my friend at the time was like, I'm going to call you the Epic Texan just to get a jab at them for being like that. I'm like, I love it.
I love it. That's my
Love
name
it. And
now.
I was like, okay, I'm taking that name. That is mine now.
That is
You
my
know,
hashtag now. Fuck y'all.
yeah. And I was like, okay, that's my radio name. That I brought that in. So the name was given to me even before I was like thinking about being on radio.
Yeah.
But it was cool that okay, I have a name for radio before I got on radio, and I don't even live in Texas anymore. I live in Oklahoma now, but everybody knows me as the Epic Texan. I'm like, I can't give that name up.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
That's even funnier because I totally thought you were still in Texas.
Some people do. Some people think I live in Dallas for some reason. I was like, I haven't lived in Dallas since 2013.
Yeah.
But I moved to Oklahoma actually back in 2015 to be closer to my children actually.
Oh, nice.
And I'm like about a little over an hour north of Texas, so I'm not too far from
Yeah.
it. In Texas, born, raised, spent most of my life there. That's always going to be my home state, and always consider that home.
Mm-hmm.
Even if I'm living in Oklahoma, so I'm a Texan at heart.
Yeah.
So I'm going to keep that name, but going further, it's like, when I was doing, internet radio first, it's like that helped me a lot. Learn about underground, unsigned, independent bands, artists, stuff like that, who were like, hey, we need help.
Mm-hmm.
The first band I ever worked with out of Houston was a band that called the Black 13.
Mm-hmm.
Heavy metal band, very influenced by, Slipknot, Pantera, stuff like that. And you can definitely tell it, in their music. And even though they aren't as pushing through music as they used to be, the music, even though they released last year, you can still tell that they never lost a step.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's bands, that unfortunately don't even exist anymore, but I still keep their music.
Yep.
And it's like I see the passion, I see the hunger. I'm like, okay, I need, these guys need help. I've got a platform. Let's do this.
Right.
All right. So I started, with, just using the Epic show. I mixed in, mainstream rock and metal with, who I could work with, some musicians are still around, Broken Romeo, Voice, Downfall 2012, Memory of a Melody, these are people I've
Super.
worked with since the
Yeah.
beginning, you know, and then there's bands I wish were still around that I love, unfortunately they're no longer around, but man, their music was awesome,
Yeah.
and I still keep that experience with me, I still keep that music with me because I'm like, yeah, that's like, Slayer hung it up, but I still listen to their music,
Yeah.
there's
No,
bands that have hung up. I'll still listen to their music,
we had
you got
some
to keep
epic
that.
local bands that were like that.
Yeah.
When I was like 15, 16 years old, there was like 3
Mm,
bands that always hosted shows together, and those
yeah.
shows were incredible. And eventually 2 of the bands merged and became one band, and then they left the Okanagan and toured
Uh,
full time. But just like I still look up to those days as like
mhm.
those were the glory days for me. Like
Yeah.
I'd go to a church and there's like 150 to 300 kids my age, crowd
Hmm.
surfing and buying merch and like hanging out with the
Nice.
bands, and you don't see that anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that it's the fact that we wanted to appeal more to bars the older we got.
Hmm.
And I think that was the wrong move because it disconnected us from the actual people who care about music, which is the youth. The youth is where you want to influence
Yeah.
and get listeners.
One thing I love about where I'm from is they will have both. You will have venues that are just like bars that are 21 up and stuff, but they will have, all ages shows, you know,
Yeah.
and they will be like, okay, don't smoke during these shows. If you're going to smoke, you go outside,
Yeah.
and they'll have like outside patios. So you're not going to smoke inside with these kids here, you know, And the music community down in Houston, it's like all the way from little kids to old people.
Yeah.
There's the age range is just tremendous of who loves the local scene down there.
Yeah.
You
We used
know,
to have that.
I wish where I live now had that, because I miss it. I really
Hmm.
do. But I still see it. I still keep in touch, with my friends, and a lot of the musicians down in Houston and other areas of Texas. And it's like I still see it, and I'm like, keep it going, you
Yeah.
know. And this needs to be an example of what other places need to be like, And when I started out, it was kind of like a hey, fend for yourself type thing, and it's grown more of a community, you
Hmm.
know, where other venues will work together now, where they used to be at each other's throats. Now they're working together.
See, that's
And I'm
nice to
like, you
see.
have to, promoters, venues, you know, whoever else is involved, it has to be a community and it has to be one where you work together and not be divided,
Yep.
you know,
Yeah, no,
because the more you're
100%.
divided, the worse it's going to get, you
And we're
know,
already so divided.
exactly.
Like,
So many things in this world we are divided about and it needs to stop.
yeah, even music, like
Yeah.
genres, metalcore
Mhm.
isn't metal and this isn't metal. And it's like,
Yeah, the elitists, so to
yeah,
speak.
yeah,
Yeah, the elitist,
exactly. Yeah.
the
No,
gatekeepers.
yeah, that's what, and everyone calls them that too. And it's funny because it is. It's like, and I find most of the time the people who are like that don't even like
Hmm.
play an instrument.
Yeah,
They're the music fans that are just dedicated, but they're like stuck in their ways
yeah.
because you
And
need
you know what?
change.
There's nothing wrong with liking what you're liking, but at the same time, don't judge me for what I like.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
because I'm not going to sit there and be like, "Oh my God, you like this? How dare you?" Who am
Oh,
I to say that?
I've known for a fact. I know for a fact that I've heard bands once.
Mhm.
2 years later, I heard them again, and I liked them, but the first time I couldn't stand them. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So, I think that there's a time where everyone kind of develops their palate for heavier music,
absolutely.
and I think that globally it's happening more, but it's kind of
Hmm.
on the hush hush because like video game commercials and movie
Hmm.
commercials now have really heavy instrumentals in the
Oh yeah,
background, and you're like, fuck yeah, it's slowly catching on, but
yeah,
I think
yeah.
it's the
And
unity. I think it's that unity that the metal community has.
hmm,
You know what I mean? Like you can't break us. You
yeah.
may be able to divide us, but at the same time, you still see two metalheads walking down the street and
Hmm.
they're like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's just how it is.
Yeah. And it's like, and you're even talking about video games, and there are even some games that would be like not even just instrumental music. They'll actually have rock and metal bands play in their
Yeah,
games.
or like Doom, the whole soundtrack, the
Oh
new one is
yeah,
just like
absolutely.
fucking greasy.
Um, Perfect example, this band Interimage from Houston, Texas. They're kind of like a hard rock band.
Mhm.
Um, they've had a couple of their songs being played in racing games.
See, that's cool.
Yeah. And I'm like, dude, that is awesome. And it's just like, I suck at racing games. I
Mhm.
personally suck at them.
Yeah.
I'm more of I'll play, Legend of Zelda type games, you
Oh
know,
yeah.
but the fact that they got that opportunity, it's like, hey, that's another way for them to get heard.
And I
That's
think
awesome.
that's one thing that a lot of bands don't think about too, because they think about, we just got to perform, we got to do that. In
Hmm.
reality, if you want to be a successful band in 2021, you have to become a business,
Absolutely.
and now
Absolutely.
multifaceted business, because you'll see bands out there now having their own beer line, their own coffee
Yeah.
line, their own clothing line, and not just
Coffee.
merch.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like
Yeah. I've
you
seen
see
so many.
everything.
Yeah. Everything's coffee these days. Wine,
Hmm.
IPAs, IPAs. Any way you can market yourself,
It's the only way
Take
because
for
people don't
example
have CD
Megadeth.
sales.
Megadeth, they've got their own IPAs out there,
Hmm.
and they're still playing music.
No, there's a band from Vancouver in BC,
Yeah,
Hyperia, and they shout out to Hyperia, and they have their own beer called Hyperia. And it's
nice.
right, like it's just you gotta think outside the box as if you want to be successful
Hmm.
nowadays, because you're not making thousands and thousands on money
Yeah,
on album sales.
yeah,
Touring, like
yeah.
we already went over, it ain't cheap
Right. Yeah,
unless
absolutely.
you're
Yeah.
making tons of merch sales. But then
Mhm.
the only way people are going to be buying merch is if they're there for a show dedicated, because most of the time people would rather buy a beer than a t-shirt.
Right. Exactly. And that's another thing. Ask your fans what they want.
Hmm.
Ask your supporters what they want.
Yeah,
I've seen a lot of people do that recently. I'm like, that's actually a good idea. There, that way you can learn what you can market.
that's what I've been
You
saying to
know,
our band too, is we need to start being more intimate, but like interactive. with our
Mhm.
our fans, the people on our page, because
Yeah,
they're the ones who are supporting us. We may as well be giving them what they want.
exactly.
Hmm.
I've seen, you know, some bands and some musicians do that, and I'm like, the more personal you are with who is supporting you, the more of that support you're going to get, and it's going to grow. All
Especially now.
right. Yeah. If
Hmm.
you act like a quote unquote rock star and you're just like, okay, thanks, whatever. I don't even
Hmm.
want to talk to you. I'm just going to post and I'm not going to respond. You're going to lose your support.
Yeah, no,
You know?
Me and Dale 100% make sure we personally message every person who messages us. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Those are my
Yeah.
favorite moments too.
There's been some musicians out there. I'm like, hey, man, your music's pretty cool. I'd like to talk, maybe on your show. I hear crickets.
Hmm.
I'm
I've had
like,
that too.
okay, well, I will never play your song again.
Yeah, for me, I've had that too, where I'm like, hey, I'm really interested in interviewing you guys, and they just like never
Yeah.
respond, and you're like, okay, I'm cool. Next band.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
there's how many bands out there, and
Right, exactly.
if you're not
And
invested in your
it's not
career,
just and it's not one of those things where it's like maybe they didn't get to my message. Trust me, I've seen that they've gotten to my message.
yeah,
You
no,
know,
it's what else are you doing? We're all in
right?
lockdown, right? So it's pretty obvious when somebody doesn't respond to you, and you kind of
Yeah.
you just chalk it up to whatever. There's another band,
Yeah, exactly.
and
It's like next.
I've always had the outlook that if you're not willing to invest in your career, why should
Hmm.
anybody else? And that
Right.
means your time, your money, your emotion, and your
Yeah.
dedication,
Yeah. And it's like, what I do with radio, I don't get paid for my show at all.
right?
I get no income off of this whatsoever.
Hmm.
This is all voluntary. A lot of internet stations and internet DJs and that you hear on these things, unless you're on AM, FM, sports, or Sirius XM, you don't get paid.
Yeah, just like podcasts, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Most podcast people don't get paid unless you have sponsors, that, you're, working with them. You're advertising their product and they're paying you at the same time.
Hmm.
I don't have that. I don't have sponsors right now.
It's
I'm
hard to
doing this
get.
all voluntarily. I don't make
Yeah.
any. I have to work. I work a full time job Monday to Friday. 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. You know,
Yeah.
and sometimes overtime. It's like and I do that just to help support my kids, my family, and everything. But then I do this.
Yeah.
And it's like okay, and I'm not asking for money. I don't. I would love to do this as a full time job. This would be my dream job.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I would have to give up a lot of my integrity and what I'm fighting for to go work at an FM radio station.
Yeah.
You know,
It's definitely
and I'm sorry, that is not me. I don't want to work for corporate FM,
yeah.
which and I'm not going to bash them. They are what they are and they do what they do.
I've
That's
just never
them.
understood the top tens. Like I don't still to this day, I don't understand who creates the top tens of most popular music because you always hear like
Uh,
it's just some electronic beat with a pop singer on it, and then all of a sudden they're top the number one, but you've never heard them before
yeah.
or who they are.
Yeah, there are some like because of the fact that they've dabbed a little, like Post Malone.
Hmm.
He's dabbed a little in rock and metal. He
Yeah.
worked with Ozzy Osbourne.
Well, he was
You
also in a
know,
metal band before. That's
yeah,
one thing most
absolutely,
people don't know is he was actually in a metal band for years, and then
yeah,
they broke up, and he was like, "Well, fuck it, I want to make it one way or another."
right. And he
So
could play instruments too.
yeah,
He's not just a vocalist.
yeah,
He's not just somebody with a microphone walking around. Hey, listen to me.
yeah. No, like he can play
He
Cliffs of
he
Dover
could
and
play
stuff.
music.
Yeah, that's what I love
Yeah,
about him.
and but I didn't know if, I mean, I learned of the history after I knew who he was because of his current music,
Hmm.
you know, and I'm like, okay, at least he's someone who's like, okay, I'm just going to do it. Like you said, one way or another, I'm going to get my music out there, even
Hmm.
if I have to switch it around,
Yeah,
you know, but then there's, there are rock stations. I love here in Oklahoma. I've got two FM rock stations I can listen to back and forth just here where I live. And then there's, go a little further south, there's another one.
hmm.
And there are Loudwire stations, they are Clear
Yeah,
Channel stations, and then there's can't remember the other company, but it's like you're hearing the rock, you're hearing the metal, but at the same time, it's the same thing over and over.
hmm.
You know, but there are sometimes you will hear hour or two blocks on a late night weekend. Okay, we're gonna play this local band. That's cool and all, but there
Did
needs to
that?
be more than that.
Yeah, I definitely like. We have a metal station in Kelowna,
Hmm.
and yeah, like they play like Black Label Society and shit. And I'm like, fuck yeah, like that's what I
Yeah.
used to listen to, and I listened to it. But it'd be nice to see radio stations because they
Right.
get paid funding for it,
Yeah.
to play local
Right.
artists. It's not that
Right.
hard.
Absolutely.
It's really not that hard to reach out to
Yeah.
your
And you can't
community.
tell me that there's no money around for that, because how much, money are we putting in things that we don't really need?
Yeah,
You know,
no, it's
there's
true.
a lot of things in this world that we are getting, you know, funded for that we don't really need.
Hmm.
It's like, I could go on, and that's another topic I could go on to, but
Yeah.
I'll say that for another time.
It's definitely a weird world where music isn't appreciated. And the
Yeah.
people who are pushing for it to be appreciated, their efforts, like, it's showing, you see it in the community that we have. Like a
Uh,
year ago, at the beginning of COVID, we didn't have that community that we have online.
Yeah.
The community we have now over COVID has brought us all together
Hmm.
globally. All metalheads are working together again. So you see bands liking other bands' pages, and like you'll have all five members liking all five members. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like you have to work together to make it anywhere. There's gotta we went into this competition like a
Hmm.
sports team at one point, from friendly competition with bands of who could get the crowd jumping more,
Right.
to I'm not even gonna stand in the crowd and watch you perform because I
Yeah.
don't really give a shit about you, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I've seen it personally go from that, where I used to
Yeah.
like party with the bands afterwards, and now it's like they don't
Right.
even talk to you when you get to a show.
And that's another thing. It's like, you know, let's talk about bands being on shows, live shows, or even people going and see, like, hey, I want to go see this band and they're going to play with all these other bands, but I don't know them. Well, stick
Hmm.
around and find out.
Right?
You paid for admission. You're already in there.
Hmm.
Why are you paying for one band and then leaving?
Yeah, I hate that too. I always get
You
pissed at my
know?
friends when they show up for just us
Hmm.
and then leave.
Yeah.
Like have always gotten pissed at my friends for that, because it makes us look bad too. It makes us look like we
Yeah.
don't really care about the other bands, right? So
Right. Exactly.
yeah.
It's like I booked a show one time at this venue in Houston called Acadia, and my friends that I mentioned, Memory of a Melody
Hmm.
earlier, they were coming in town, and I was like, okay, cool. I'll book them. I know some bands that would love to play with them. Um, but I didn't put them on last.
Yeah,
I did not put the touring band on last, and there was a reason,
you never
because of the
do.
fact that they're not local.
Hmm.
You know, you don't put the touring band on last unless it's somebody that big that everyone wants to know. But if
Yeah.
it's if it's a band, that's on the same level as the other bands that are playing there, you don't want to put them on last, because everybody's gonna walk away.
Yeah. I
You
think
know,
that's one
you're,
thing bands also need to get over, is that
mhm,
ego of, oh, we headline.
yeah,
My favorite position to play is first. You know why? Because I set the bar. We go
yeah,
as hard as we fucking can, and then the rest of the bands, you got to compete with
mhm,
that. Have fun. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like,
yeah, absolutely. That I love that. I love that. And I've seen some shows where it's like the first band was the best band of the night.
hmm,
They set the bar, nobody can match them.
yeah, and that's what I
And I
love
was just
doing.
like, holy hell. And I'm just like, I don't hate on the other bands, but
Just
the
it
first
was,
band was just awesome.
yeah, and that's you have to,
Yeah.
especially live, because these people are
Hmm.
paying. I mean, it doesn't seem a lot, 5, $10, but I mean, in all reality, for your hour that you're
Hmm.
there on stage, they're paying you. You may
Yeah.
as well give it to them.
And on top of that, people who go to shows, you got to realize when you pay that admission, you're not just paying for the bands. Everybody has to make money that night.
Hmm.
The venue, the bartenders, anybody else working that night has to make money.
Sound
Okay.
guy,
Yeah. Sound guy,
yeah,
anybody that's doing any kind of tech stuff,
door,
anybody.
yeah,
Yeah. Everybody involved has to get paid.
yeah.
Right. So you're not just going there and being like, I want 100% of this to go to that band. That's not how that
It doesn't
works.
work like that. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
If you want
Yeah.
it to work like that, go buy merch, because
Mhm.
that's how that works.
And another thing, even when, more of this opens up around the world, or even locally, wherever you are, um, what was I going to say? I'm sorry, I'm having brain farts. This happens in old age.
No worries.
um,
You're talking
you
about
know,
fans and
yeah.
supporting.
Well, let's switch it over to promoting the shows. All right. That's everyone's job. Don't
Yeah.
leave it up to the promoter. Don't leave it up to the venue. If you are a musician, you need to promote as well.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
100%.
Yeah. And I hate exclusiveness. Well, we're playing this show at this time, so we can't talk about this show at this time. I
Mm-hmm.
cannot stand that.
Yeah.
That's like, okay, well, then you're taking away from my show. That's not fair to me. I'm not saying you can't play their show. I want you to play their show, but at the same time, if you're not going to be involved in this show, I'm not going to keep you on there.
Yeah.
You know, that's not fair to everybody else
Mm-hmm.
involved, not just me, anybody else.
Yeah.
All the other bands, the venue. It's like we're having to promote on your behalf
Yeah.
because of that, and it's like that's not fair. And I I hate saying it, I actually had to pull a band one time because of that.
Yeah, I would do the same thing, honestly. If
Yeah,
you have to help.
yeah.
We're not rock stars.
And I
I
hate
mean, we'd
being
like
that
to
kind of
think it.
person. I hate being that kind of person that does that. Thankfully I've only had to do that one time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's like this was more of a, hey, you're opening for a traveling band that's actually pretty big,
Mm-hmm.
and we're doing ticket sales for this, because I was part of the contract. And you asked to be on the show, but yet you're refusing to sell any tickets because of some other show with some other big band
Mm-hmm.
that you're wanting to promote because you like them better. I'm like, well, then why did you volunteer to be on this show in the first place?
Yeah. I've always had a hard time with that one too. The
Yeah.
having to sell a certain amount of tickets to perform kind of a
Yeah.
thing. But I get it when it's like big artists because
Yeah,
yeah, you got to make
exactly.
your money. But I mean, sometimes, I mean, if they're that big of an artist, they'll sell themselves. You know what I mean? And I've
Right.
seen it happen locally
Yeah.
where like Hobson came through, and Hobson, he was a huge hip hop artist. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like they didn't have to sell tickets just because they knew those tickets were going to sell. But then there are other shows that are
Yeah.
iffy. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah,
and
I've seen it both ways.
that's the
I've seen
rider.
where people make it off of tickets, but I've seen people make it off the door themselves.
Yeah.
And I've done shows both ways. I try, back when I was doing shows, I tried not to do the ticket sales.
Hmm.
I would prefer the door because there's more involved in that,
Yeah.
you know, versus, you have to make a quota, you
Yeah.
know. No, I can see right then and there at the door what's being done,
Yeah.
you know, and that way it's like
Not
clear
to
cut
mention,
communication. It's marked right there on a sheet of paper.
yeah.
Who came right there? They said they wanted to come to see you, and that's what they gave their money to. Okay,
Hmm.
so you're getting that,
Yeah.
you know, and so that way also it can't be like, well, this band got paid more than us. That's not fair. Well, they had more people show up.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry. I wish more people showed up for you. I really do, because I want you to succeed. But at the same time, I can't control who comes to that door.
Yeah.
You
You
know
gotta learn to hustle. And that
exactly.
and I think people always trying to hustle just to their friends.
Yeah,
And the older
and
you
I've seen
get,
it.
the less your friends will
Yeah,
be there in that
exactly.
aspect, right? They got jobs, lives, kids.
Mhm. Yeah, and
So
I've seen it to where there's been shows where every band had a really good night, and I've seen it to where no bands had a good night, and
mhm.
I've seen it to where some bands have had a good night and other bands didn't. I've seen all of it.
Yeah.
You know, so not only do you have to work on those aspects, you also have to work on who works with who
Yeah.
in a show. Who works with who? Because I'm not going to say this band works with that band, and I've never seen them play together before. You know,
Mhm.
I'm not. When I book shows, it's like I want to see this band with this band, and I'll even ask, hey, do you think these bands would work together? I would go out on social media and be like, do you want to see a concert with this band and this band? Sometimes I would either get a hell yes or I don't know about that.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
so you got to get the feedback response as well.
Yeah.
You know, and on top of that, it's like some bands like, I don't care, I just want to play with that band because I like that band. Okay, sure.
Yeah.
You know, they won't even care about their door or whatever they make. They just want to get the experience of playing with that band because they like them so much.
Yeah. My favorite thing is when you get to when you meet a new band that's the same
Mhm.
level as you, and you guys just like click and you become like band buddies. I guess it's the
Yes,
easiest way to say it, right? Like,
it's like a family.
yeah, and that's what I
Yeah.
think the like Enigma's created. We've met so many bands now, and I can honestly say like a lot of the members I've met are genuine friends of mine now because
Yeah.
we just connected, right? And I think that used to happen a lot, and I see it coming back. But over the past like 4 years, there was a huge break in
Hmm.
that bands talking to fans, bands talking to other bands, and I think there was just like this huge push.
Hmm.
Everyone was trying to crawl to this top of
Hmm.
this wave of bands
Yeah.
that were coming onto Spotify. But I've
Yeah.
noticed that because of COVID, a
Hmm.
lot of the bands that didn't adapt to marketing and recording from themselves, they're either done or they're going to
Hmm.
be way too far behind.
Yeah. There's I've seen both sides, just like you said. I've seen it to where it's like a family, it's a community,
Mm-hmm.
and not just locally. I've seen it to where, people from Canada are
Mm-hmm.
friends with people from Texas,
Yep.
you
Oh,
know, or even overseas,
cauterized and
Germany.
Semper Service. My
Yeah,
boys have never met them, but I fucking love those guys.
yeah. And I've seen it and I'm like, okay, and I'm Axe Minister. Have you heard of them?
I haven't. No.
Oh, they're from Canada. Yeah, check
Sweet.
them out.
I will.
Um, my buddy Steve McLeod, he's their most recent member, and I've been talking with him for several years. He's, we've been following each other back and forth, bands he's been in, stations I've been on, back and forth. And then I see him talking to musicians from Texas,
Mm-hmm.
Europe, Asia, Australia, and I'm like, that's how it needs to be,
Yep.
you
Yeah, that's
know,
the community that's slowly building. And
exactly.
you do see a lot of it coming out now, which is nice
Hmm.
because I think it's the tail end of COVID. People realize that, especially in our industry with metal,
Hmm.
it's not going to happen by itself.
Yeah,
Like you're going to have to build your own venues. You're going to have to build your own shows from the ground up from now on
yeah,
until we get that rolling wheel again. Because right now, it's definitely not going to be just book a show and go.
yeah,
There's going to be a lot of people who are hesitant on even going out and being in a mosh pit.
yeah. And then there's some bands that use the pandemic to their advantage.
Oh, hell yeah.
And I've seen it. From Ashes to New.
Mm-hmm.
They have this song called Panic. All right. Originally, it was about having anxiety,
Yeah.
and dealing with that issue and everything. But when they were about to release the song and the video for it, COVID hit, and at the same time, they're like, okay, we can also use this to our advantage because everybody's in panic about the pandemic. And so we could talk about both at the same time. So they released it. And honestly, that's their biggest hit so far right now. All right. And the video that they used, they talked about how, what they were supposed to do with the music video and how COVID affected them,
Mm-hmm.
with the production and everything. So they had everything all set up and then they had to change everything. And now their video is them playing in this, abandoned office building wearing their merchandise masks, with their logo on it, you know. Hey, guess what? We have masks. We're selling them.
Mm-hmm.
You need a mask. You have to wear it. You might as well buy it from us.
Yeah.
Marketable right there. But at the same time, they were also getting on, social media. Hey, we're going to do some cover songs. What cover song would you like? You let us know. We're going to talk to you. You talk to us. We're going to do some contest giveaways, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
They used it to their advantage.
Yeah.
Even though they never got to do, go out to a concert or anything, do any tour or anything because everything was shut down. And they still took it as, hey, we're going to take advantage of this. We're going to find a way to get this keeping going, and it worked
Yeah.
for them. You
Yeah.
know,
Most bands definitely either sunk or swum. Yeah, they
yeah,
swam. You know what I mean? Like a lot of them were like, "Hey, fuck it, we're gonna market in a different way."
yeah,
And I saw a lot of bands that I haven't even seen a single post from since the pandemic. Like,
right,
and it's weird because I'm like, are you guys done or like
yeah,
what's the case? Because I mean, a
right,
lot of big bands too. Those
hmm,
bands rely on touring and merch sales to pay their record labels, and I wonder how many are going to be bankrupt after this.
yeah. I mean, there are some that, like you said, is just like they've sunk to the bottom of the ocean, and there's some that are like, okay, we're still afloat,
Hmm.
and we're still around. And there's some that have just, kind of went behind the scenes during the pandemic, like, yeah, we're still here, we're just working on something.
Yeah.
We got something coming for you, but we're working on it.
Yeah, like one of my favorite bands, while she sleeps. This entire
Oh yeah,
pandemic, they have been releasing a single here, a single there, and with
hmm,
a music video, and then they have
yeah,
like this whole new movement going that they've created, and it's like something's coming and it's gonna
yeah,
be epic, and I'm just like, oh, what is it? What is it? What is
hmm,
it? So
yeah,
they were smart about how they did it. Plus, they do all the recordings themselves. They are
hmm,
pretty independent for being a signed band,
yeah,
so they are really they're an inspiration, I think.
hmm,
Like a lot of people don't know who they are, but I think they're a definite inspiration for
hmm.
bands nowadays to look up to.
Yeah, and even going back to what we were talking about earlier, how you can be doing things multiple ways to
Hmm.
get your name out.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. Even with music itself, there's a band called Heart Sick Heroin out of Colorado. Okay, yeah, they have their own original music. They also do some covers, but now they're also doing wrestling theme songs.
Right. That's something
to,
I've always wanted
to
to do.
kind
I
of,
just never knew how to do it.
let's reach out to the wrestling community, see how they like it, and
Right?
it's greatly positive feedback that they're getting mostly.
Hmm.
They just covered Metalingus by Alter Bridge recently. Edge's theme song from WWE.
Yeah.
You know, great positive feedback. What they did with it, and I was like, dude, that was actually pretty awesome.
Hmm.
You know, and they also, in their cover songs, they kind of act, at the same time. Um, they did Carry On My Wayward Son,
Hmm.
for Supernatural,
No doubt.
and they kind of acted out of the Supernatural scene for the video for it,
Right.
so it's like, okay, there's more than one way to get your music heard,
Yeah.
market stuff, find ways that work to where you can get heard.
Hmm. And find other things that may not be technically in your music that
Right.
you can relate to people with.
Exactly.
And that's, I think, one thing bands, a lot of bands didn't realize is like, there's a lot of bands that I've noticed that have made funny videos because
Hmm.
they're a funny band. Like they're genuinely just funny people,
Oh yeah.
and they use their comedic release.
Psycho Stick.
Yeah,
Psycho Stick.
right. Like there's so many
Yeah.
good bands out there that do it, and I think that soon as things open up, it's going to
Hmm.
be a whole new market. Like I
Yeah.
really think there's going to be a whole second music industry that is being created by the people who make the music, where we take it
And
into our
it
own
really needs to
hands.
be in their control again, because when they lost control, it hurt a lot. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that I'm seeing, some bands are like, we're just gonna, we're gonna do things our own way. We're gonna record our own stuff in our own studio, do it our own way, and we're not gonna have some corporate company tell us what to do, what we can and can't do.
Yeah.
But at the same time, on the other side of that coin, you know, the true, label companies that are out there that are for the interest of the musicians, I will give them mad respect for what they do to help them
Yeah.
out,
There are some
whether
really
it
good
be
labels out
independent
there.
or the big ones.
Yeah. There's a lot of people out there that are willing to reach out to bands too if they see you work hard. And I think that
Yeah.
that's proven in just, I mean, I think it's 6 bands that we've interviewed
Hmm.
have been signed in the past month.
Nice.
And that's just because they've worked their asses off over this
Right.
pandemic. And I think if there wasn't a pandemic, it wouldn't have been that quick.
Right.
Like I know for a fact we wouldn't have signed in a year if it
Hmm.
wasn't for the pandemic and us sitting down and busting our asses off. So I think
Yeah.
labels see that, they appreciate it, and they, you know what? I like their work ethic. They kept going no matter what happened. That
Yeah.
right there proves who's going to last in the music industry.
Right. And in a way, you can look at it as a silver lining.
Hmm.
Yeah, the pandemic sucked. It sucked
Yeah.
big time, but good things still came out of it.
Yeah. How
You
many people
know.
can say they got a year at home with family? You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, or a year with their band just to sit and
Yeah.
write. There's a lot of
I
blessings,
Yeah, I am working from home. I
right?
have been for the better part of a little over a year now.
Hmm.
I was the last person in my department to get sent home because of the fact that my internet where I live sucks. That's one of the other reasons. Another reason why I don't do live shows now.
Yeah.
Um, I even had a internet interruption earlier while I was working today. Thankfully, where I work, they're cool with that. But
Yeah.
at the same time, it's like, okay, I'm blessed with the fact that the company I work for was quote unquote essential. You know,
Yeah.
they were needed because of, it's a financial organization that I work for. Um, and I was blessed the fact that I did not lose my job.
Yeah.
Same with my wife and same with a lot of people I know, family members, friends, and stuff like that. You know, I keep that as like I as much as I hated going through what I went through, I was still blessed at the same time. I didn't suffer like other people did.
Hmm.
And I've lost, me and my family, we've lost friends, we've lost family members, because of COVID and everything. Regardless of what your opinion about COVID is, it sucks all around.
Yeah. For
You
anybody,
know,
whether
yeah,
you believe it or you don't believe it,
right,
we're all
exactly.
fucked. We all got screwed over.
Yeah, one way or another, it affected you negatively.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It definitely, I think it was a blessing in disguise for me because I was at a point of what I wanted to do. Like, I don't
Hmm.
know. I had just hit 30 and I'm like, oh shit, I don't know what the fuck to do with my life.
Yeah.
And then the pandemic hit and I was forced to not work. And then I was like, I've always been told, if you make you do a job that you love, it's not working kind of a thing. And the idea of this kind of came, and I'm not
Yeah.
ever going to go back, even if I have to struggle.
Yeah.
It's kind of like this is something that's needed. We
Hmm.
we need people to make a voice for musicians,
Absolutely.
and I think that there's a lot of people who do it, and I think collectively our voice will be heard eventually. But even like fact that I made a post the other day on one of the groups, and it was like, how many of you people have Napster and Tidal? And people
Yeah.
laughed at, and I wanted to see, and people laughed at it and made fun of it. And then I gave them the numbers of what Spotify pays for 100 plays and what
Hmm.
Napster does, and their opinions instantly changed because they didn't
Yeah.
realize, and I made a post that bands need to start pushing Napster again.
Hmm.
And now I've
And
seen 3 bands that are like, hey, go check out our Napster. So it's
yeah.
once you plant the seed, it's there.
Yeah.
And I
Which
think that
is
that's
which is
beautiful.
really weird because I've seen more people generally push Spotify more than anything.
Yeah,
I'm like, I don't understand why.
I
You don't
don't
really get
either.
paid that much.
And everyone says, oh, they have the most viewers. But if you actually go and do the research, Spotify's viewers, their main portion of viewers is for podcasts.
Yeah.
It's not, their listeners aren't there for the bands. So
Yeah.
they may have the
And
biggest population, but it's for podcasts. It's not
yeah,
for
and on
musicians.
podcast, you
It,
can't play mainstream music
no,
without,
and they
you
don't pay
know,
royalties for
with
that.
exactly.
Yeah.
I try to podcast my show on there and it got taken down. And they're
Yeah.
like, yeah, you have music on there. We're not gonna allow you. I'm like, oh, okay, my bad. I'll just keep it over here. Cool,
Yeah.
thanks.
And yeah, no. Ours hasn't been taken down, but it's because we use underground artists, I think.
Yeah, and
And I
see, and
have
I've
them
got a
send
mix
me their
where,
songs.
yeah, on my
Yeah.
show is a mix of both, you know,
Yeah.
and I get that, if you're playing, underground and you have the full permission, you don't have to pay royalties,
Yeah, but really,
stuff
what's
like
the
that.
difference between somebody putting that song on a playlist and sharing it versus you doing a radio episode?
And see, yeah, exactly. So I kind of did the loophole. I'm like, okay, I can't do a podcast, but I can make a Spotify playlist for everybody to listen to,
Yeah, and you can
you know.
technically do a podcast still, but you just don't have
And another
content for
thing,
it.
a lot of people don't realize is that there's a service out there that you don't have to pay for. You can make a playlist. It's called YouTube.
Hmm. Yeah,
It's
I
completely
mean,
free. You don't have to pay a subscription.
yeah, it's
You know.
definitely and Spotify itself it's great for
Hmm.
exposure, but I really don't think me and my guitar player had a huge fight about this the other day. Not fight, but discussion about it. We were back
Yeah.
and forth, but I personally don't think that we should all be focusing on pushing Spotify. I think we should utilize all of them, but
Hmm.
push the ones that pay the most. You know what
Right.
I mean? So like, yes, you'll have your Spotify
Yeah.
followers. You mean you post them all, but like when it comes down to
Hmm.
post a couple singles on Spotify, post a couple singles on there. But when it comes down to you releasing your album and you want it to be bought,
Hmm.
only do it from your website, kind of a thing,
Hmm.
or your label's website, or go to the place where it's going to pay you the most and put it
Yeah.
there, the full album. So
Or
people
or
are
do it
forced to
later.
go there.
Do it later.
Yeah.
There's some there. Look how long Tool took before they released their music digitally.
Yep.
Before that, they were like, no, you have to buy it from us.
Yeah. And that's one thing
Or
I've
go to a
heard bands do.
store and get a CD, or go to Amazon, buy our CDs or vinyls or whatever.
Yeah. I know a lot of bands will say they have 100 CDs they ordered. They
Hmm.
won't put the songs up until those CDs sell.
Yeah.
And that's a smart way to
Um,
do it.
yeah. There's a band out of New York, I believe, Revel 9. They're a hard rock band. Everybody was like, oh, when's it going to be on Spotify or, Apple Music? Where they're like, after we do our CD sales.
Yeah.
We want physical sales first.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, I love that.
Yeah.
I
Props.
still have CDs in my home.
Oh man. I love them. They're all in my storage unit,
Yeah.
but I still like, I have CDs. And one
Yeah.
of the bands that I grew up playing with, they're like, does anyone have our CD? And I'm like, I've got 2 albums. I've got
Yeah.
both your albums you guys can have back.
I have a CD from a band that I met in Denton, Texas. Fortunately, they're no longer together. They have one of the funniest names, and I'm glad I still have their CD, called Johnny Pecker and the Beaver Bustin' Pickle Weasels.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I've met some really funny fucking bands that I just randomly performed with that came
Mhm.
through Penticton and we played, and I still have all their CDs. I
Yeah.
always bought a CD from the bands that I played with.
Yeah.
And
And
yeah,
it's like, some band merch, shirts, bracelets, stuff like
hmm
that. This right here, I wish I could do merch. I try to do merch. It is tough to push merch.
it is.
This
And
my wife gave, got this custom for me
Yeah.
as a gift for our wedding.
Right. I definitely,
You
and I just started reaching out into merch too. And it's, especially if you don't understand online stores,
know.
it's really complicated because it's really hard to convince people to buy your product because they're like, oh, well,
Yeah.
I can't just go to a store and buy it.
No.
Well, no, you send me the money and your product's on its way. It's how it
Yeah, and
used to
then it's even
be.
more than that. It's like you have to pay a company to make these things for you.
Hmm.
Unless you do it yourself. And there are some bands I know they're like, well, we also have our own printing company. I'm like, that's awesome. You can do it yourself.
Yeah.
But I'm not a printer. I don't
Yeah.
have a printing, machine or anything like that. I don't know. I don't even know the first thing about printing on merchandise.
Yeah. And I think
Um,
that's the where the community comes in. Like
mhm,
I've hired 2 artists from Indonesia because I
mhm,
know that the artists in North America are there, they put themselves on a pedestal. But
mhm.
art is art. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I can go anywhere and find a great artist. And I was lucky enough
Mhm,
to find 2 Indonesian artists that are fucking incredibly talented. And I don't think I'll ever change. You know what I mean? Like
mhm.
I know
Yeah.
what we do
And
benefits them and they help benefit us. And that's how it should be in a
yeah.
partnership.
And then there's even underground artists, and those are the ones I will work with the
Hmm.
most. You know,
Yeah.
um, there's people that will create these digital designs, flyers, graphic tees, and stuff like that, and they're just doing that to help feed their family. You
Yeah.
know, at the same time working a full job. I'm like, hey, and then and anytime I ever see anybody like, hey, I need a digital this or I need this made or this made, go to that person. I know
Yeah.
them personally. They
Yeah.
will do awesome for you.
Yeah.
You
I
know.
definitely have a couple friends that I will always recommend as
Hmm.
graphic artists, and same with film doing for
Yeah.
video. And
Oh, same. Yeah.
it's because I know
Hmm.
that they do it good, and
Hmm.
they don't overcharge. And
Hmm.
I think a lot of people need to be more humble on what
Yeah.
their services are nowadays. Because
Absolutely. And then then there's some that are just like a jack of all trades. This is this guy that I've known for a long time. His name is Chubbs Malone. All right. He is a musician. He plays drums in a band called Dead Set Red. He's
hmm.
also a rapper.
Yep.
He's also working in a recording studio that also does music videos. So he's like a jack of all trades.
Yeah.
So when you have a guy like that can do almost everything, and his manager also, does merchandise, and they do, t-shirts and stuff like that. You got the whole package right there,
Yeah.
that's a marketing business right there.
Yeah. And that's kind of like where we're at now, where slowly we're trying to branch out. We have our main thing, but I've got a lot of things in the works and
Hmm.
slowly reaching my fingers out because um I think there's a lot of potential in the community and what to what we can all do together, kind of a thing.
Right.
So I'm kind of like just gonna go full bore, whether it brings me
Right.
into the ground or not. But at the same time, like it needs to be done. And I think that's
Yeah.
what's scared a lot of people is that, oh yeah, I don't want to be the voice, or I don't want to bring up those things. In reality, if everyone's saying that, then no one's ever gonna make a change, except for like a
Exactly.
handful of us who are sitting here trying to bring
Hmm.
up these topics. Like there's a lot of us out there and it's
Yeah.
slowly getting heard. And I think that the more we bitch and complain, I guess things will eventually change, especially in this day and
Right.
age, because that seems what
I,
all you got
I,
to do.
and I hope so because it's hard because where we're at, it was in a way put in a way that we're set in. Um, I've seen even people try to make social media things where it's like, hey, are you tired of the restrictions of Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and stuff like this? Come on over here. And it gets completely ignored
Right.
because everybody's so set in their ways of how they already are doing things on those social media that they bitch about.
I would love a new platform. Like if I could find one that I could
Mhm.
get behind right away, like right now, that was
Yeah.
more more catered to musicians,
Hmm.
not in a Spotify perspective where it's catered to
Right.
listeners, but it's an app, a website that's catered to musicians to be able to gain not exposure, but be able to put like
Hmm.
go on there, have battle of the bands. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
that's the shit that's missing. And I think
Right.
that if there was somebody out there who was good with computers that was just to do that, they would make such a good light living. And even
Right.
if they paid the artists a small fraction, like anything more than a cent, and they're gonna
Well,
have every band going to them.
the thing is, and I think you've hit onto something, and I don't know anybody that's willing to do it, but it's an awesome idea. It
Hmm.
is, and The thing is, once that grows and more musicians get involved and more people who are fans of music get involved, then you can get the marketing in there. You can
Yeah.
get the ad sales in there, the sponsorships and everything. It'll
Yeah.
all start rolling. Yeah, you could do it, but it has to be a business, just like anything else.
Yeah. You have to think smart, and
Yeah,
you have to, and do it not for yourself. Like I said earlier, like I think
exactly.
that's why I think people who are
Hmm.
doing what we do, whether it be radio, helping underground
Hmm.
bands,
Yeah.
podcasts, or even just writing interviews.
We're talking about stuff like this. One thing we need to mention is Bandcamp.
Yep.
I love Bandcamp because the fact that they have the Bandcamp Fridays where the artists and musicians get 100% sales.
Excuse me. Yeah. No, 100%.
Yeah.
I've always had a hard time with Bandcamp. I'll admit, I love what they do. I
Hmm.
wish they would change their customization.
I agree.
I think that their website is terrible looking, and it definitely drives
Yeah.
fans away because the fans looks at it and it's like, So I mean, if they were to
Yeah.
just like revamp the look and
Hmm.
allow bands to, like MySpace,
Make it
no,
their
if
own.
they were
Make
to
it
say
personal.
make it personal,
Yeah.
Bandcamp would take over, and that's like
Exactly.
I wish that they would.
So
They're
there
right
you
fucking
that's it
there.
right there. That's it right there. We need a MySpace Bandcamp
Bandcamp.
mashup.
We just need Bandcamp to just add that portion. And I
Yeah.
know that it wouldn't be hard for them to do
Right.
in their making of their website, right? So
Right. And
because they would
honestly,
take over.
if it was me, you know, and this is just speaking hypothetically because I have no technical prowess when it comes to
Yeah, me neither.
doing all that stuff. But hypothetically, if I was to do that, bands and musicians would get 100% of whatever it is they sold.
Even if you
You
went
know,
80% and put 20% back into the
right?
website to invest, make it better,
Exactly.
fans wouldn't care because you're not taking 99.99%.
Right.
Giving,
You're gonna get you're gonna yeah. That's actually a good idea. If I, get it, you get a majority of it. I just need help. You know, getting this thing bigger.
yeah.
Yeah.
Realistically, bands would be more than willing if you made a platform that was like that, or even Bandcamp.
Okay.
Bandcamp doing it because I know Bandcamp would. I think it's just
Okay.
it
We
didn't.
we 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 need to definitely put a copyright on this idea.
Right? That's what industry talks is about.
Right.
It'll lead to, we'll just be like, yo, Bandcamp, we need you to do this for us, please.
Right.
Just change
Yeah.
the world
Yeah.
now.
And then just remember us when you do that.
Yeah, right. No, and I think that that's it's hard to do because their programmers will charge you out the ass to do it.
Yeah.
And that's where it gets hard. So you either have to be good at it yourself or be willing to give up
Right.
70% of your idea. So
Yeah.
if the
That.
idea is out there, for me, I've always thought if you put the idea out there, somebody else will do
Hmm.
it, and three people will fail at it,
Hmm.
and then the one person will succeed. So at least the idea is out there,
Right.
because I know I can't. I
Yeah.
would if I
I,
could, but
I I I
that's
wish I had the technical prowess for it. Um, even the
mm,
website I have right now is just like, it's a very basic website because, I use it off of Wix
yeah, it's not
because I'm
easy to
like,
do.
it's easy, it's very user friendly. And I'm like, okay, I don't have to use all this HTML stuff that I don't know about.
Yeah. Well, maybe
So
I'll try to reach out to the owner of Bandcamp and get his ass on here and be like, "Yo, we
we need to have a talk, man.
need to have a talk." Because I mean, that's what I'm for this series. That's kind of what I was hoping to do is reach out to people that are higher in the industry
Hmm.
and work in the industry and whose voice isn't in a musician that can say, "Yo, shit's fucked up. We need to
Yeah.
change." Because musicians can preach about it all they want, and it's going to fall on deaf ears.
Yeah.
But if you have actual
Absolutely.
people,
Yeah. Because there's a difference between words and actions.
mhm. Yeah, and that's
Your
I think it's a
actions are
big
always going
thing.
to speak louder than your words.
Yeah, and I think it's a big thing that just need it just needed that one step, I mean,
Mhm.
not to say every revolution, because it's not really a revolution, but I mean every revolution needed that one kick in the ass
Oh
to get
yeah,
going.
absolutely.
And I think that there's a handful of us that are doing it,
Hmm.
whether it be on radio stations, just anyone who's supporting underground emerging artists,
Yeah,
they're creating a revolution right now. And I think that's a
absolutely.
beautiful thing.
Absolutely. I mean, you could do it from podcasts to internet radio stations,
I have a friend that makes metal memes. She's out of Malaysia, and she has a metal meme page dedicated to just
nice.
funny ass metal content. And I'm like, that even there,
Yeah,
she's showing bands in the videos, the music's in the
yeah.
background, and that's what it should be. Is there's so many elements that
Hmm.
are out there that we can utilize, and I think that just because I think the metal is Heaven's Void's lead singer said it to me, and He said that metal music musicians and the industry itself are 3 years behind all fats.
Hmm.
So like in 2 years from now, metal bands will finally realize that TikTok's where you need to be to get to younger crowd. You know what I mean? Kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So we're
And
always a
speaking,
little bit
it's
behind.
like with TikTok, I never thought that, when I first heard of TikTok, that I'm now going to be using it to help advertise my radio show. And at the
Right?
same time, I'm going to be using some unsigned independent bands' music while I'm advertising my show.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, I'm playing this band. You're listening to their music right now, you
And the
know?
coolest thing is you go back 2 days later and you're like, oh shit, I have 1,200 views.
Hmm.
And you think about it and you're like, hey, maybe I didn't get 1,200 likes, but 1,200 people listened to that song.
Right. Exactly.
They went through the video, and
Yeah.
that's a good thing. That's just
Yeah.
more exposure,
This week's show, the advertisement got almost 200 views. I
right?
haven't even been on TikTok that long. I'm like, so 200 people watched my advertisement for my show listening to that band's music.
It's really hard too, because I noticed Instagram things
Hmm.
have changed too, right? Like now they've changed their algorithm to posts don't really get anything.
It's
You know what
because
I
they're owned
mean?
by Facebook. Facebook owns Instagram. That's why.
Yeah. So now it's like their reels and
Yeah.
their Insta TV is where you get all your likes. But it's like I posted
Yeah.
a video the other day and I'm sitting at like 2,400 views.
Hmm.
That's 2,400 people that have been exposed to our band that
Yeah.
weren't before. So I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Even
Absolutely. And
if
it's
the
like,
little victories, I think too many people focus on the big aspect. Like we need a million fans. So no, start with 500. 500
right.
fans that'll buy your CD and you're set.
Yeah.
Because
It's
those
like,
500 fans will send tell five friends. Those five
yeah.
friends, like it that
It's
word
like
of
when I
mouth.
first started with internet radio, I knew I wasn't going to have like 500 people tune in.
Right?
I was like, man, I had to fight. I had to scratch and claw to get,
I'm
even 20 people to listen.
I looked at my statistics the other day on YouTube, and
Uh-huh.
I almost like I think it's like 50% of my subscribers come back to
Yeah.
watch other episodes. And to me, that was like the biggest compliment ever. Because I'm like,
Yeah.
people are willing to actually come back and watch my content again. I must
Absolutely.
be doing something right.
Yeah.
So, because I know it's not just me rewatching the video over
Mhm.
and over and over.
Yeah. And and that's the same thing. And it's like with my show, and it's like I've had people tell me, even if I don't play their music, whether it be music, I have some friends that are musicians that I've played their bands. They're like, even if they don't play my music anymore, I still listen to the show because I'm finding other bands I like.
Yeah.
I'm
And
like,
if and then when they do
that's
hear their
awesome.
song again, they're fucking amped, right? And
Yeah.
I think
And
that's
with my show, I try not to oversaturate music.
yeah,
One thing I used to do is like, I kind of got in the way. It was like, oh man, I love this song. I'm gonna play it on this show, and I'm playing on this show next week. I'm gonna do it. No, because of the fact of how many music submissions I'm getting out and all this new music that's being released that I think needs to be heard.
yeah.
I'm like, okay, I'm really not trying to do that as much.
And you got to
I'm gonna
give like a
play.
3 week shine, you know, four
Honestly,
times a week.
no show is the same.
Yeah,
No show is the same anymore. I will play this playlist of bands and artists this week, and it'll be completely different the next week.
that's awesome, right? And that's
Yeah.
how it should be. I think I used to have this weird thing when in my first band, the Pasties, where we used to always write our set list out.
Hmm.
And we always noticed something would fuck up during that set list. So eventually we just decided, you know what, we're going to walk into a show, no set list, whatever comes to mind, we play. Always our best shows because it
Yeah.
was by heart. And I think that that's like the same concept, right? You're like, oh, damn, this is good. This is good. This is good. Okay, you're on. And then all of a sudden you've got like 3 hours of content and music and you're like, fuck
Mhm.
yeah, it's a killer playlist.
Yeah.
So yeah. And
Yeah. And that's what I love, about like, working with, I say working with, not working for, but working with all
mhm,
these new people that before I never got to work with because they keep sending me all this stuff. And
mhm,
it's like, by the end of the week, I'm like, I've got more that I can put on my show,
yeah.
you know? So it's like, but now I have to go and pick who's going to get played when, and what time. And it's like, okay, I played them last week and then I've got more people that I haven't played yet. I'm going to put those people on next week,
Yeah.
because they need to get hurt too.
Right now you're at the point now then where you have to almost expand and get a second person, even though you don't
Yeah.
realize it, because that's kind of where it gets to, right? You're like, oh fuck, I got so much on my hands right now. I need help. Who can help me?
Yeah. I am just, like I said before, I am my own show.
Yeah,
I
same
create the
here.
playlist, I record it, I mix it, and I send it out.
Yeah, we definitely, it's just the three of us. And I'm pretty sure the boys would agree with me that I put in like 16 to 18 hours a day, whether it
Yeah.
be exporting videos, whether it's filming videos, doing interviews, marketing,
Mhm.
doing merch. Then I'm also on doing the band management and like
Yeah.
I also own a clothing company on the side that I don't really talk about much, but like I've always got my hands in something, and I think that
Mhm.
the band and my business partners all agree that it's helpful because it kind
Yeah.
of inspires them, and then they get pumped up and they start moving. And once we're all fired up, it's
Mhm.
insane how much shit can get done. And
Yeah.
I think that it starts with that one person, you know.
Yeah.
It always does. So like the more passion you put into your project, you're gonna find someone who's gonna be like, I'm down to do whatever you need to help.
Yeah. And it's just like, there are, that's what I'm thankful for with all these PR companies and labels and management companies. Are like, we're going to send you the music, and instead of just being like, okay, who should I play next? I don't even know. I'm gonna have to go look on Spotify or
Yeah.
YouTube or something. No, I'm being sent it daily. You know,
Yeah.
and it's like, and the more that happens, the more people are like reaching out to me. Hey, can you check out our music? Oh, hey, absolutely.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's all
I
it
will always
takes.
tell people, I will give them I will give them a listen before I give them an answer. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Every time I get a submission, I thank them right away. I listen to it and
Hmm.
then we them out. But we always listen to it. And I think that's
Yeah.
what's key. And I mean, especially with music too, because like a lot of people tend to bitch about quality of recording.
Hmm.
Fuck industry standard. Listen
Right.
to the actual music, not
Yeah.
what the recording sounds like, but is the band good? Because I've heard amazing bands that have really shitty recordings,
Hmm.
but I fucking love their band. You know what I mean? I'm like
Yeah.
you can tell that they're just learning how to record. It's the
Hmm.
industry now. It's how it is.
Yeah.
And or when people
Everybody's got to crawl before they can walk.
yeah, and I think people expect way too much now just to like get up and run and jump
Hmm.
and fly to the sky. Like they just expect it to happen
Yeah.
overnight. And I,
And it's like, like you said, I've had, you know, professional studio quality music sent to me, and I've had some where it's like, okay, you can tell this is demo style, but
yeah.
I still like the music, so I'm still gonna play it.
Yeah, and I think that's all that really matters is if
Yeah.
you like it or not, if it's good,
All
if
right.
it's not, right? And sometimes there's bands that I don't, not necessarily the genre I listen to,
Hmm.
but I hear the
Same.
musicianship and I'm
Yeah.
like, fuck it. There are people who listen to
Hmm.
our show that would appreciate this kind of a thing. So
Yeah. And it's like, even if it's like, say a country artist sends me a song, I was like, look, I have nothing against your music. You're a talented musician. I'll give you that. I don't play country music on my show, but
I
I
really
know
enjoy
people
it.
who do. So
Yeah.
allow me to direct you in the correct way that you need to go.
Yeah. And it's also hard too. Because you can't play everything. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like you can't get to everything at all times. And then people
exactly.
think you're rude. In reality, you're like, I'm a one-man band. I'm trying to get it done by
Hmm.
myself. And we still live lives, right? We still
Yeah,
have kids and families and pets and
exactly. And
jobs.
it's like,
So
I've had people be like, "Hey, why didn't you play my song?" I'm like, "Well, you're gonna get played eventually.
yeah,
There's people that sent music before you, and that's what I'm playing right now.
yeah. Just because you sent it to me yesterday doesn't mean it's gonna be on tomorrow.
Exactly,
Yeah, and I think
exactly.
yeah, that's the hardest thing is because like yeah, how many submissions do you get in a day? And you've got to be able to make everyone happy. You're not going to be able to, but
Yeah,
if you
not
can
gonna
at least
happen.
try and get everyone in, that's the best you
Hmm.
can do.
Yeah, and there's like, even with submissions, sometimes it's like, sometimes I have to be like, hey, can you resend this? Because I for some reason I'm not getting it.
Yeah,
I'm not able to access it. I don't know what, the files not being recognized, the
yeah,
links not working, so on and so on. So it's like trial and error sometimes.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, we're not $1 million businesses, we're going to make
Hmm.
mistakes. And I think that's
Yeah,
the thing. A lot of time people got to kind of realize that too.
yeah, yeah. And one thing and I wish, obviously storm the empire. That's easy to say.
Hmm.
You know, that's easy to say. But there are some bands out there. I'm like, how do you pronounce your name?
I've honestly messed up so many times.
Yeah,
And it's not just, I also have like terrible, like, I always fuck up with my speech, as you saw before we started this
yeah.
interview. So, like, I,
Same.
I always do it. So, yeah, no, like, I've
Yeah,
mispronounced bands where I'm like, how do you pronounce it? And they look at me like,
yeah,
you're an idiot. I'm like, nah, dude, that's not English.
yeah.
Like, I need English.
Um, like this band that I'm playing on my show this week. I don't know if it's Cicada Stone,
Right?
and
It's hard to,
I'll even say on my show, I'm like, if you know the correct way to say it, please let me know,
yeah, I always try to
because
get the
I'm
band.
tired of sounding like an idiot.
Yeah, I always try to get the band if it's like, I also deal with some bands from like Europe too. So I'm
Mhm.
like, they have some weird spelling. Luckily, I've gotten the inner ones I've interviewed have been super easy, but
Yeah.
some I'm like, can you tell me how I can pronounce this?
Right.
Just think of me as a baby. Speak to
Yeah.
me like I'm a child.
Right. Yeah. It's like, let's go Sesame Street. We're gonna start with
Yeah.
this part right here, and then we're gonna pronounce this part.
Yeah. This is the letter A.
Right.
Or the
Or
crazy
what part of the
logos.
word do you put the emphasis on?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like I interviewed a band and I thought their name was Parathion because it's spelt that way, but it's
Mhm.
Parathion.
Ah.
So I said Parathian, and when I talked
Mhm.
to them, and they're like, "No, it's Parathion." I'm like, "God damn it, sorry guys."
Yeah.
So, and yeah,
Yeah.
it's
And it's
metal
like,
names are cool and weird and really tricky at the same time,
yeah.
especially when you get the ones where you can't read, like
Yeah.
the logos.
There's one. I can't remember where they're from. I want to say like, kind of northeast of America.
Mhm.
Indiana, maybe kind of towards there and around that area,
Yeah,
or Ohio or something. Matricus is how they say their name. Spelled Matrekis, Matricus.
yeah,
But when I first heard of them, I was like, "Here's Matricus." They're
yeah.
like,
Right.
"No, no." I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry."
Yeah, Matricus,
Yeah,
Matricus. Yeah, I could see me screwing that up big
yeah.
time.
It's like I said, the emphasis on
Yeah,
what part of the
where?
word do I put the emphasis on?
Yeah, no, for
It's
sure.
it's kind of like going back to this interview when Christopher Walken was on Saturday Night Live and he was introducing the Foo Fighters. Like, do I say Foo Fighters or do I say Foo Fighters?
Yeah, yeah, it's so
Like
true.
where's the emphasis going?
And you do his accent so good too. Yeah, no, that's awesome. And it is true. Is it Foo Fighters? No, it's
Foo
and yeah,
Fighters, so is it Foo Fighters?
yeah. He's oh man, it's so true. And yeah, and it's like the simplest names too. And I've always find like the more you stare at a word too,
Mhm.
even if it's spelled properly, your brain at one point is gonna be like, that's wrong. My brain
Yeah,
does it to me all the time. So I just try not to look at letters. I just let my
yeah,
brain spell things. And if I misspell things, I realize it after. But
yeah. Same. Like this band, State of Deceit. I spelled the word deceit wrong. I put the E before the I. I was just like, oh, I screwed that up.
right, yeah, I do that all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
little things like that that are the little fuck ups that we make, right? Like, and those are the
But
things
hey,
that
we're
we're not million
humans,
dollar. We don't have proofreaders that are
right?
paid $300 an hour to fix our shit. So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, and
Yeah,
especially when you're on the go.
I don't have time to copy and paste from one thing to another. Just tell me, oh, you fucked up here.
Yeah. Oh, I do that all the time. Or I'm like, oh man, I forgot a letter there. Or like, oh, I didn't even put the
Yeah,
link in, and now I got to go find all the fucking groups that I put it
right.
in. I'm like, oh damn it, this sucks.
Yeah,
No, it's definitely it's funny being a small business owner for in the music industry
yeah,
because in an industry that's already completely died basically because of COVID, and we're trying to rebuild it. But I think that's what I mean. Like this will be the second industry. You know what I mean? Like we'll
yeah.
have the main industry where you have your pop artists, country artists, your Five Finger Death Punch, and Disturbed pop
Mainstream, all that
metal,
stuff. Yeah.
mainstream. This is where
Then
you're
you
fed,
have,
and then you're
the underground, the independents, the
yeah,
unsigns, the DIYs.
yeah. And I think that will be slowly but surely will become way better. And I mean because
Yeah,
we have that independence again, which is
right.
nice.
And honestly, and then there are even some that are in the mainstream. You talk about Disturbed. David Draymond. I know he's someone who has worked with bands that others have never heard before.
Yeah.
And be like, hey, and not just like singing with them or anything. It's like, he'll go behind the scenes and be like, hey, that's cool. I like this song, but maybe you should do it this way instead of that way. My Saul that I mentioned earlier,
Hmm.
David Draymond co-wrote a song of theirs.
See, yeah, and that's what's cool. And I think that was, yeah, we touched on it earlier. I think that more major, not major artists, not like famous artists, but like if there is an artist that's from your region, like for example, I'm from BC, so right
Hmm.
now Spirit Box is fucking blowing up,
Oh, I love Spirit Box.
right? They're from Vancouver Island, so
Yeah,
they're like 6 hours away from me
nice.
across a ferry. But and
Yeah.
it's I wish bands that were just like their level, you know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
they're finally getting noticed.
Hmm.
It would be cool for them to be like, yo, go check out all these bands from BC and start pointing out their friends because
Right.
that's what we need more of. And I know that,
Exactly.
and from what I've heard, they're the most genuine band. I mean, I wouldn't expect anything less from the island
Hmm.
because Islanders are like the most peaceful hippies ever. So it's awesome to
Yeah.
see like a metal band coming out of the island. I'm like, fuck yeah.
Right.
But it would be cool to see them, even host, because they have that power, when they do a local show, bring in
Right.
local artists. When they perform as a headlining band in Vancouver, instead of
Hmm.
having a band come with them, bring up Hyperia, bring up,
Yeah.
Anarcheon, bring them all up and bring them in, because I mean, we all have to start somewhere. We're all a team. It doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I think it's just that needs to happen more, is where,
Hmm.
like, because I've heard from, like, Texas, one of my favorite
Hmm.
bands is from Texas, Upon a Burning Body.
Oh
And,
yeah.
like fucking Ruben, from what I've heard, is one of the
Hmm.
most genuine dudes.
Oh yeah.
Like, I've worked with two bands that have worked with him, and I added him on Facebook, and
Hmm.
I said thanks for the ad, and he was so genuine back.
Yeah.
He
Um,
does a ton. They do a ton for their
I'll pull one
local.
out from there too. Drowning Pool.
Yeah, they
Drowning
do
Pool
tons for their
from
local.
Dallas,
Yeah.
Texas. I've met CJ Pierce so many times, hear shows playing. He's even, worked with his brother in his own band, As Above, So Below,
Hmm.
and he's just one of the nicest guys you could ever meet,
That's
you know?
all I ever hear is the major bands that are from Texas
Hmm.
do so much for their community. They'll have local
Absolutely.
bands open up, and I think that Texas is a huge um is a template of what
Hmm.
it needs to happen, because every band I interview from Texas is just like, no. I've interviewed 5 bands from Texas now, and
Hmm.
every band is like, our music scene is fucking tight.
It
We
is.
help each other, our venues help each
Yeah.
other, the major
I've,
bands help the lower bands.
yeah, I've worked with, tons of people in the music scene, in Houston, of course, being my hometown,
Hmm.
as well as Dallas, Fort Worth. And I know people in the scenes from like Austin and San Antonio and other places.
Yeah.
And it's just like it becomes a community.
Hmm.
You know, you get friends, you get people you call family out of it.
Yeah.
Even though I don't live in Texas anymore, I still talk to those people. I still support those people. The venues down there, I can't go to them as much as I used to, but I will still sit there and help them advertise. Hey, there's these shows going on. You need to go
Yeah.
see these.
Yeah. And I think that that's what makes your guys' bands so genuine, because everyone
Mhm.
I've met is just so genuine and down to earth. And
It's that Southern hospitality, man.
yeah, and I mean, even California, like,
Yeah.
I've introduced 2 bands from Cali,
Hmm.
from LA. Funny enough, the drummers in both bands,
Nice.
Zombie Eating Horse and Antagonist.
Okay.
And, like, from the 2 hour and a bit interviews I've had from them, like,
Mhm.
Orlando, he can come to my house anytime he wants and crash on
Yeah.
my couch. Like, it's cool that I've never met him, but there's
Hmm.
like that brotherly bond already.
Absolutely.
And I love that
Absolutely.
about metal. I think that that's one of the
Yeah.
coolest things. Like, it's
Yeah.
beautiful.
And California, I feel bad for them because they are such a pay to play state.
Yep.
I hate that for them. It's like you have to pay money just to be heard.
Yeah. Well, Norman and I have we're slowly coming up with, so for our merch line,
Hmm.
every shirt sold, $2 is going to get put aside, and every hoodie sold, $5 will get put aside. And we want to put on a music festival eventually and bring
Nice.
up the bands that we've interviewed. So
Nice.
eventually we'll raise money, try and find sponsors who will match what we make, and
Right
bring in a whole
on.
bunch of sponsors and try and get an underground festival done.
That would be awesome. There's something like that. I mentioned Curtain Call Records.
Hmm.
Something like that is happening. I believe it's in West Virginia this summer, called Metal in the Mountains.
Oh, nice.
Um, they've got some big name bands. Soulfly is one of the headliners.
Oh, sick.
Yeah.
That'd be
Soulfly, Butcher
fun.
Babies, Killer's Confession.
Butcher Babies would be
Um,
fun to see too.
yeah, I love
That's
Butcher Babies.
right.
Those girls are
That's
awesome.
actually pretty dope.
Yeah, but all the rest of the bands and artists, mostly curtain call underground bands and artists
That's
that
awesome.
you've never even heard of, are opening for these bands. And it's like I see more of the bands I've never heard of versus the headliners.
Yeah, and I think that's what
And
needs to happen.
I think it's like a 4 day event. Hey, they even have Kevin Nash from wrestling
WWC,
showing up.
right?
Yeah,
Like, Kevin Nash the shit, and then you like Chris Jericho, who's got his own band now and shit too,
he's
and
got
like,
2 bands now.
right? I know, it's
He's
so
got
funny.
Fozzy. Now he's got this new band, Quarantine with a K.
Yeah,
And he's
it's
still
so funny.
wrestling, and he's got a podcast. He's hosting on Sirius XM radio. Man, that guy's a jack of all trades.
Yeah, it's what you got to do. You kind of got to
Yeah,
expand out everywhere in this day and
exactly.
age. It's really funny. No,
Absolutely,
but
man.
I think that concept of having a few major artists that aren't like $1 million to pay for.
Right.
Because I
Like
think
Metallica or something.
that's where I think people fuck up is they try and get this extremely expensive artist, like, oh, we're gonna pay
Yeah.
in flames. No, you're not.
Hmm.
Get somebody chill, like
Yeah.
if you want to get somebody who's really good and will probably charge you less, go for Shadows Fall. You
Right.
know what I mean? Like
Oh God, I miss Shadows Fall.
highly underrated and one of the
I
best
miss
bands out
Shadows
there.
Fall.
Oh, they're still going. And that's the thing
Are
is like,
they?
oh yeah, they're still going. I'm pretty sure. I see Brian post shit all the time on Instagram. I'm not,
Man, I haven't seen any new music from them in a
they
while
might
though.
not be, they
They
might
might.
have
I think they're working
taken a
on maybe
hiatus.
doing a comeback.
Yeah, but I mean, like they should have, they deserved so much more
Oh yeah,
credit than they got.
yeah. And there was other bands that back in the day, the same. Straight Line Stitch,
Mm-hmm.
Straight Line Stitch. Man, those folks were awesome. And their vocalist, she was awesome. They just didn't get the spotlight they deserved.
Yeah,
And they just had to hang it up.
like
There's
that.
bands that are still going for like 10, 20 years now, and they're still doing what they can to make their name heard. Very Union for one.
Yeah.
These guys are coming up on 20 years now.
Yeah, that's like Antagonists, the ones I was talking about from
Yeah.
California. They're 23 years in. They've been
Oh
a band
wow.
since 98 and they're best friends out of high school. Like they've just never
Wow.
stopped, right? So that's inspirational. Like
Yeah.
I may have been playing for 18 years, but I've never had a band last 23 fucking years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've had a relationship last 6 years max, like
Right.
let alone a band. So
Yeah, and it's
like
like even sometimes even with bands, even if they do stick around, sometimes the lineups change a lot.
lineups and I mean influences. Look at Megadeth. They changed out
Yeah.
Marty Friedman because he wanted to go
Hmm.
experimental and they
Yeah.
wanted to stay there where they were. So and that's the difference. People grow and change.
Yeah.
And I
But then
think
there's
that's
some that was like, hey, we're not changing because what we have works.
yeah.
Look at Seven Dust. They have
Yep.
all their original members. They don't change anything and it works for them.
Yeah. I mean, I wish that Lamb of God, Chris didn't leave Lamb of God because
Yeah.
they were solid, but I understand.
Yeah.
It's you've been playing with
But
the band for that
even
long.
the new stuff they came out with, that is
Art's
still
such a
pretty
good
good.
drummer. Oh man,
Yeah.
Art's he's such a good drummer. It's
Yeah.
insane. So like no one else could have filled that spot.
Right.
That's how I feel. And like
Yeah.
that's what I love about those bands. Like I'm always worried that those bands are gonna go bankrupt, but I know that Lamb of God won't because they were smart. They had
Right.
their stream concert for their thing. Like we paid for it
Yeah.
to go watch them. Like our Norman paid for it so the whole band could watch kind of a
Yeah.
thing. And but then I look at a lot of other bands and I'm
Hmm.
like, what happened to you over
Yeah.
COVID?
And that's another thing, with bands, utilizing what's going on. Yeah, we can't do live concerts, where you're here, but we can still stream stuff and have you pay for it.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
streaming is a hard concept too, because I mean then you have to
Hmm.
you gotta rent out a sound guy, you gotta rent out the
Lights.
lights, the room,
Yeah.
the
All the
camera,
all
you gotta get
the
a camera.
technical equipment.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
camera person. You may as well just book a fucking normal show. It's
Yeah.
cheaper.
But at the same time, it's like,
You can appeal to more people on an online one,
for those people who couldn't go to a show, you still want to cater towards them. And if that's the only
right?
way you can do it, that's what you got to do, you
Yeah, and I
know?
think that was smart. There's a lot of bands that did do that, and there's a service. I can't remember what they're called. I want to say Support the Scene does it.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's Jade Weeks out of Vancouver,
Okay.
and basically she has bands come in, they do an interview, then they get to perform live, but it's all in a
Nice.
quarantined area, so like
Yeah.
it's done properly and they have live feed and then they put it out in
Yeah.
it. And I'm like, that's so wonderful. They offered us to come down, but our guitar player is in Nottingham, so we can't
Yeah.
technically go down.
I got
So
you.
right,
Well,
like
it's like in Houston, Rhythm Room Studios, I believe it's called. They will sit there and it's almost like you're in a recording studio. You
yeah,
know, the vocalist is in their own booth,
right.
guitarist is in their own areas, whatever, but it's all live streamed.
See, and that's cool.
Yeah.
Like I think that's kind of like something I want to work towards too. Is
Yeah.
I want to add more services that are helpful for local bands too.
Yeah.
Like the bands that are in our area, I'd like to be able to offer them services that can help them out. So there's like a lot of things that I'm working towards
Right
um
on.
here. Like I would like to offer green screen services because I know that there's not that many. And when people who
Yeah.
do charge out the ass,
Mhm.
I don't really worry about money. I want to see art. So I'd be
Right.
more willing to help bands for a cheaper cost for doing something
Yeah,
right.
absolutely. I mean, enough to cover the cost of what you need done, and that's
Yeah.
really all it needs to be.
And like that's what I mean. Even with the merch, like we wanna sell merch to put money back into the company so that we
Right.
can do more for people, kind of a thing. Because like
Yeah,
even putting on the music festival, well, we sell a lot of shirts, then we can up the price of how much donation
exactly.
goes to it, right? So we got
Yeah,
baby steps. We're slowly trying to get it so that
right.
we have a global network between all
Yeah,
of us.
and then there's people that need to realize that as well. You got to do baby steps. You can't just be like, "All right, we're a band. Let's make a hit song and go on tour and be the biggest thing ever."
And I
I
think that's
guarantee
what a
you're going to
lot of
crash and
people,
fall.
and that's what
You're going to.
I always laugh about these people who do get picked up on TikTok. These bands with
Hmm.
their one hit, and then all of a sudden they sign a record deal, and the label's like, "Hey, well, we need 10 songs in the next year."
Hmm.
Like, can you produce that? Can you keep
Right.
quality over quantity? Because it's not
Hmm.
easy to write.
Yeah.
Anyone can write a song. Anyone can write a
Yeah.
three-chord song and put some lyrics to it, but it's not easy to write a song that will last the ages.
Yeah. And then there's bands like I've seen them do it very smart. They took their time.
Yeah.
They took their time. This band whose very first single just came out earlier this year called Affinity Falls. Um, they've been like talking about, doing stuff for the past few years. And they're like, yeah, the reason why we took so long because we wanted to get it right.
Yep.
I was like, you know what? I respect that.
No, 100%. That's like us with
Yeah.
our EP. We took time on it.
Hmm.
We even had a part where there was like the most like, oh my God, it was the tiniest little thing that you could hear in a song. And what it
Hmm.
was like this the scraping of a pick.
Okay.
Millisecond, right? And we're
Yeah.
no, we're fucking picky. Jake, you're redoing that. So he had to redo his whole guitar takes and then redo everything. So
Yeah.
like, and like, I love that about our band is because it drives me nuts sometimes because
Hmm.
I don't have a lot of patience. I like to get things done and going and let's get it on the way. And the boys are like,
Right.
no, can't rush perfection.
Yeah.
So we definitely balance each other out in that aspect because like the boys
Hmm.
are my anchor. All four of them are kind of holding a limb each, holding me back from moving forward. So it keeps us steady and in a good place where we're not
Yeah.
fucking ourselves over. But
Right.
it definitely it takes time. Like you can't
Right.
rush out an album, and you can tell when you rush an album out.
Yeah. I mean, and that's just like in life in general. You have an idea about something. And it's like, yeah, it's exciting, and you're like, crap, I want to do this right now, but you got to take your time with it.
Yeah.
It's like, certain aspects of my life. I'll be like, I wonder about this. First thing I'm going to do before I even, try to, you know, push it to the foreground, talk to my wife, be like, hey, let me get your opinion on this,
Right.
you know, because, or just talk to a friend, somebody, be like, hey, what do you think of this? Because guess what? They might have something that works with that's even better than what you came up with originally,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of people. I think there's like not many people bounce ideas back like that because they want to
Hmm.
hold their idea to themselves. You know what I mean? And that's why I'm kind of
Right.
like, it really doesn't bother me if I say something on here and someone takes it and go makes $1 million. As long as it gets
Yeah.
done and it benefits everyone, I'm okay with. So for
Yeah.
me, I think that people need to talk, like we need to cooperate more with people
Right.
and be partner up more, like
Absolutely.
we're none of us are millionaires, none of us are fucking making tons. So why not help each other to build each other?
I mean, it would be nice, but the reality we live in right now, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, and I think that's I mean there's like a select few people who will do it,
Hmm.
which is it really just depends on I think the genuine, like how genuine somebody is and
Right.
how you and like I for me and like our whole band we have this thing where if you
Yeah.
like when we have a business meeting or a PR company wants to talk to us, if you want FaceTime
Hmm.
with us, you may as well continue going because like if you're
Yeah.
not going to give us the time of day to face, get to know us, let us get to know you kind of a thing, there's
Right.
no point in a partnership. And I think
Yeah.
that and that's deterred a lot of fucking PR and labels too, because they're like, oh no, no, no. And we're like, all right, well, now we know that you're a
Yeah.
scam. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's a smart way. And bands, I don't think Dale would love me to
Hmm.
bring that topic up too, is like the amount of fake PR companies out there charging money for
Oh,
bands to get, oh my,
yeah.
it's so disgusting.
It is, and I saw someone who actually has their own PR company, and he called out these other PR companies for being
Hmm.
that way. You know, he's like, I do it for $1 a day because
Yeah.
that's all it costs me. All I do is sit on a computer. I talk about you. I send emails to these, you know, radio stations, and I talk about you on social media. It doesn't take that much. It doesn't cost a lot,
It doesn't.
you know,
It really doesn't.
and and that's why I like working with the companies I work with. But at the same time, there are some people I know that charge more than what some others because of the fact that they have better connections. That I get.
Fair enough. Yeah. If you
You know,
have the
sometimes it's going
connections,
to cost more for quality.
well, that's exactly right. You pay for quality, but when
Yeah.
people don't really have like, I know we've been asked for $1,300 for
Hmm.
PR, and I could
Yeah.
do it myself, kind of a thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
So there's a lot of people out there who are just trying to scam bands, even though bands
Hmm.
aren't making money. And it's another thing people don't realize. Like, we have to filter through all these fake promises and all these fake record labels that contact you.
Yeah.
And then it just breaks your hope. By the time you actually
Right.
get a real one, you're like, well, is it real? You know what I mean? So it's like,
Yeah. Exactly.
it's really heartbreaking to see our industry just so
Hmm.
underappreciated now, you
Yeah.
know, because it is something that it's been in our culture for 10,000 years. I mean, we were
Yeah.
cavemen and we had drums. So
Yeah.
like, how long ago was that? I'm not good at that history, but
Right.
like, it's in our blood. Like, I can go
Yeah.
to Africa right now to a random tribe with my guitar,
Hmm.
and they've got drums, and I'm a jam with them. You don't even have to
Yeah.
speak the same language. And I think
Right.
that people forgot that connection.
Exactly. Music is a universal language.
It is.
It is because everywhere in this world has music one way or another.
It's mathematical.
Yeah.
Like, that's how our entire creation is mathematics.
Hmm.
And I definitely think that there was this weird disconnect from appreciating music for
Hmm.
what it is. Like, I'm just like a total weirdo the way I love music, and I love it
Hmm.
like I love music like people love their pets. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I absolutely love music that, like,
Yeah.
I get defensive about it when someone
Right.
talks bad about music. They're like, "Oh, well, I don't understand." I'm like, "Motherfucker, listen here." Like, I get pissed off because
Right.
I'm passionate about it, and
Right.
I think that's what kind of drives me nuts more and more. It makes me just kind of like, my eye twitch is like,
Yeah.
when I ask somebody like, "Oh," they're like, "Oh, I love this song." Well, who sings it? And they can't say the artist's name because they don't know,
Hmm.
but they love the beat. Oh, like, "Oh, I just love the
Yeah.
beat."
Right.
You're a mindless drone. You know what I mean? Like, at that point, you're just a fucking robot.
Yeah.
You're being fed what input, output. That's it.
Yeah.
There's no free thinking there.
Yeah. Oh man, I would love to continue this, but
Yeah,
I
no
do have to
worries,
cut this
brother.
short.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely have you on again, and thanks for coming on.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Yeah. Anytime you just hit me up. All right.
Yeah, for sure, bro. You stay safe, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right, man. Take it
All
easy.
right, have a good night.
All right. You too. Bye.